Chapter 899. In the nameless valley of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, the lake was sparkling and a lone boat was drifting. An old man was fishing alone on the boat. His fishing rod was already in the water as if a big fish had taken the bait, dragging the fishing rod across the water. With King Jianghu as the leader, the 6 members of the law enforcement team immediately surrounded the old man. At the same time, the team of 6 summoned the 6 origin spirit restriction chains. In an instant, the space around the old man was completely sealed. The sudden change caused the old man to let out a muffled groan and his figure to bend a bit. Lu Ye's position was behind the old man to the right. He looked up and saw that the old man was full of energy and had a thin body. This was the goal of this mission. From his appearance, one could not see anything special, but from the simple conversation between King Jianghu and Mofeng, Lu Yi knew that the old man was not as simple as he looked. The old man stood up and looked at Mofeng, who was standing not far in front of him. He smiled and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, you're here?" And Mofeng looked at this junior brother of his who had grown up with him, who had studied under his master, and who had made Immortal Dawn Mountain great and strong. His heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. His dry lips moved, but not a single word came out. "You must be from the law enforcement team, right?" The old man looked at King Jianghu and the others. They seemed to have accepted their fate. Not only did they not show any signs of resistance, they even had the mood to comment, "You're all good. It's good to be young." Of course, the main reason was that he couldn't resist. Under the 6 origins spirit restriction lock, all spiritual power was restricted. No matter how much the old man's cultivation level would be in the future, he was just a person without a physical body and could only display a little of his strength. "Search." Lu Yi snorted and took out a piece of golden silk paper. He opened it and shouted, "Immortal Dawn Mountain's young elder, King Jianghu, original name Zhao Jing, from the Cloud region. 41 years later, he snuck into the War region and changed his name. He was lucky enough to join the Immortal Dawn Mountain and hid until now. He tried to destroy the foundation of the War region. He is not guilty and will be arrested by the Law Enforcement Hall's 8 team. Sin 1, 78 years later, the next sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain was assassinated by you when he was out on a mission. He died. Sin 7, 84 years later, during the small battle at the Heavy Cloud Pass, you ambushed and killed a few cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Sinner 8, 81 years later, at the 100 Battles Pass, you provided information to the enemy. In the end, you lost several thousand men. Sin 7. Even though he had no guesses in his heart, when Gung Lui read out King Wu's crimes, Myriad Demon Ridge still staggered, and his face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had never thought that this junior martial brother of his, whom he had spent decades with, would not have such a side to him. Every time Kong Lui read out a crime, Wan Mo Ling's expression became more and more aged. 7. "Forget it, I'm too lazy to recite it." Gung Lui Wu impatiently put away the list of crimes in his hands and looked at King Wu fervently. "In short, King Wu, you've been exposed, take it." When the order was given, 2 dragon-binding ropes flew out from Shengguan Qiu and Mu Jing's hands. The dragon-binding ropes, which were at the level of a magic tool, were like spiritual snakes as they coiled around King Wu and tied him up firmly. The complexity of the mission was unexpected. Ling Qi originally thought that they would have to fight a battle on this trip, but they did not expect the other party to show no signs of resistance, allowing them to activate the power of the dragon-binding ropes and the dragon-binding ropes. Once they caught him, it was even more likely that the other party would stir up some trouble. In other words, the mission had basically been completed. All that was left was to bring Jin back to Grand Sky City. As for how to deal with him, that was the matter of the prison. Just as Jin was thinking this, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. In the dark, an inexplicable sense of danger surged in his heart. His expression turned cold, and he secretly became vigilant. This kind of intuition was rarely accurate, but there were also times when it was a sign. Especially for Ling Qi, who had given birth to spiritual sense, this kind of intuition could easily be ignored. He suddenly realized that even though he knew that he had been exposed, King Wu had a reason to surrender. Even an ant would drag out its life, let alone a cultivator. He knew what would happen once he was caught. If Ling Qi was in his position, even if he knew that there would be no good in resisting, he would probably just sit and wait for death. Unless he wanted to live. But looking at King Wu's posture, did he even have the slightest intention of dying? Ning Hu was imprisoned in his body, and his body was bound by 2 dragon-binding ropes. King Wu was still calm and composed. He looked at Gung Jin and said, "Fellow Taoist, Dharma and logos are based on human feelings. Seeing that I am so cooperative, how about you let me say a few words to senior brother?" Gung Luyi frowned, but finally nodded, "1 cup of tea." "Yes, it will take that long." King Wu smiled, then looked at Wan Mo Ling, whose face was completely pale. "Senior brother, you must have nothing to ask." Wan Mo Ling's heart was in a mess. He had a stomach full of questions, but he did not know where to start. He subconsciously said, "Yes, yes, yes." "What's wrong?" "Junior brother, do you want to explain to them?" King Wu chuckled. "Shun, you were naive when you were young, and you're still the same when you're old. Son, how can you lead the Immortal Mountain with a bow? You and I both know that the law department will make a small fuss. If they make a move, they must have solid evidence. Moreover, did senior brother hear what this fellow Taoist said just now? Is that so?" Wan Mo Ling clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "So, you're really in Mafeng's spy?" King Wu sighed. "Fate makes fools of people. The next sect leader was also killed by you? You've wronged me. I know where the law department got the information from, and I actually know some things that happened decades later. But at that time, the old sect leader was already seriously injured and had a long life ahead of him. I just sent him on his way. No matter what, the old sect leader taught me, and he can be considered half a master. Although I'm in Mafeng's spy, I will still do such things." "What about other things?" "You can consider it as doing it." Seeing that Wan Mo Ling wanted to continue, he sighed and said, "Senior brother, I don't have much time. Is this all you want to ask?" Wan Mo Ling was speechless. How could he know that he was asking nonsense? King Wu said, "Senior brother, you're wasting your energy. I'm indeed in Mafeng's spy. Back then, before I stepped on the path of cultivation, I was sent here. Although I was forced, I still did something that didn't harm the Haotian alliance. The law department is right to arrest me today." "How can it be?" Until now, Wan Mo Ling still doesn't dare to doubt it. It's really hard for anyone to accept this. There are many spies like me in the Haotian alliance who are Jinbin spies. Of course, the Haotian alliance also placed a few spies on Mafeng's side. The two sides have been fighting for so long. Although I'm Mafeng's subordinate, I grew up cultivating in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He looked into the distance leisurely. His eyes were simple. "What a pity. It's time, Sect Masterin. We should go now." Gong Lui shouted. Jinbin was stunned. Obviously, this series of events had shaken his mind and made his thoughts chaotic. Seeing him like this, King Wu didn't feel any resentment. "Before the old sect master died, the young elders recommended you to be the next sect master. I tried my best to stop it because, senior brother, you're suitable to be the sect master. Your mind is too difficult and was affected by the internal forces. Now, it seems that it's true. Just a traitor has shaken your mind. If you encounter an even smaller matter, what will you do?" "What are the smaller things?" Myriad Demons Ridge asked. "For example, the danger of sect annihilation?" King Wu looked at him with a deep gaze. At this moment, Ling Qi's heart was beating wildly. The sense of danger he sensed after that was extremely weak. Clang! The sound of a long saber being unsheathed alarmed everyone. When everyone's eyes focused, the saber in Ling Qi's hand had already ignited and he slashed it towards King Wu. This unforeseen event caused Gung Luyi and the others to be slightly shocked. Did Ji Ling Qi go crazy? Their mission this time was to capture people. As for how to deal with it, it was up to them to manage. Naturally, there was no need for the people of Vast Sky City to worry about it. If they killed someone now, they would have to explain themselves when they returned. As soon as Geng Lui's voice fell, his face changed. King Wu, who should not have been able to retaliate due to being bound in place, suddenly emitted a weak and tangible force that swept out in all directions. Just a moment ago, Geng Lui felt a pain in his head and saw stars. The others were even more unstable and fell into the lake. Divine sense. Geng Jinjin was a fourth-order true lake realm cultivator after all. Although he was suddenly attacked, he didn't immediately lose consciousness. Before he realized what had happened, he was shocked and angry. The target of this mission wasn't a true lake realm cultivator, but a hidden spirit sea realm cultivator. No one knew when he broke through to the spirit sea realm, or what method he used to hide such a young man. However, from the weak divine sense, the other party shouldn't have broken through to the spirit sea realm for a long time. His cultivation was at least a second-order spirit sea realm cultivator. The sudden change caught everyone off guard. Under the divine sense attack, 10,000 Demon Ridge and Geng Lu Yi were barely able to maintain their bodies. The others all fell back into the lake. The effect of the 8 origin spirit lock was instantly broken. Only the long saber in Ling Qi's hand fell to the side. HM? King Wu showed a surprised look. In his perception, Ling Qi's cultivation was the highest among everyone present, a mere first-order true lake realm cultivator. But in this sudden change, Ling Qi's performance was the most eye-catching. He had even made a move before King Wu could do anything. And under his divine sense attack, this first-order true lake realm cultivator wasn't affected in the slightest. This was a strange thing. King Wu subconsciously thought that Jin 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 must be from a top sect and was wearing some kind of treasure. Chapter 900. Lu Yi did not expect that his vigilance in times of peace would be confirmed so quickly. He had the golden lock given to him by Thought Moon Immortal around his neck. Outside his spirit sea, there were 2 flood dragon phantoms protecting him. Inside his spirit sea, there was the soul-suppressing pagoda. Not to mention a trivial second-order divine sea realm cultivator, even if he met Wan Zhonggang, his soul would not be damaged. When Ninghu unleashed his divine will, Lu Yi could clearly feel that the golden lock on his neck had unleashed an invisible barrier, attempting to block the attack. Although it had some effect, it was not obvious. The invisible attack blasted towards Lu Ye's mind, but before it reached his spirit sea, it was blocked by the twin dragon sea guard. The soul-suppressing pagoda's spirit sea remained calm. The long saber also slashed down. Ninghu obviously did not expect such a thing to happen. When the law enforcement team arrived, he did not resist. It was not because he wanted to die, nor was it because he was willing to be captured. It was because he had something to rely on. If he was really a true lake realm cultivator, he would naturally have to submit under the 6 origin spirit lock and dragon binding ropes. But 8 years ago, he had quietly reached the spirit sea realm, and now he was a second-order divine sea realm cultivator. The 6 origin spirit lock could restrict spirit energy, but it could not restrict divine sense. He could get rid of it at any time. He just wanted to say a few words to an Mo Feng before they completely fell out. That was why he was so cooperative. Everyone underestimated him, and he underestimated Sun Yi. But then again, who would have thought that a trivial first-order true lake realm cultivator would not be affected by the divine sense attack? One had to know that under the impact of his divine sense, even true lake realm 9th order cultivators like an Mo Feng and King Geng Wu were stunned for a moment. Xiao Jing's enemy naturally had to pay the price. Ninghu's hastily condensed protective spiritual energy was not able to completely block Lu Ye's sharp blade. The blade landed on Ninghu's chest, leaving a wound. Blood splattered. Ninghu felt the pain and quickly broke free from the dragon binding ropes. Violent spirit energy surged as he threw a punch. This punch was indescribably fast. The thin old man's strength could make any true lake realm cultivator feel despair. In his field of vision, the shadow of the fist rapidly enlarged, covering the sky and hiding the earth. The aura of death swept over. Lu Ye's mind was unprecedentedly clear. The long saber in his hand slowly danced. As the long saber danced, it evolved into a mysterious saber aura. The flames on the blade soared. The twisting flames seemed to come alive, quickly forming a complex and profound pattern. This was the spirit pattern that had made a great contribution in the battle with Wanzhonggang. Gekon shattered, and so did Lu Ye's hastily condensed defenses. The fist shadow bombarded the blade of the long blade, and then slammed into Lu Ye's body. With a muffled groan and the sound of bones breaking, Lu Ye flew out like a broken kite and fell into the lake. Ninghu was confused again. To be honest, in this short period of time, Lu Ye had given him too much shock. Not only had he not been affected by his divine sense attack, but he had even survived his punch. He could clearly feel the power of moon return. Under the effect of the mysterious spirit pattern, a portion of the power he blasted out was actually reflected back, weakening his attack once again. After that, Lu Ye seemed to have used some defensive techniques, which was why he was able to injure him but not kill him. Which sect's disciple was this? No wonder he was from a big sect. The Immortal Dawn Mountain would never be able to cultivate such a talent. The fight between Lu Ye and Ning Guanyao only lasted for a short period of time, but it was this moment of delay that saved the lives of the others. Otherwise, with the situation just now, Ninghu could have killed everyone. When Lu Ye fell into the lake, and Mafeng and King Gongwu also regained their senses. And Mafeng's face was filled with grief. You're actually a spirit ocean cultivator. If there was a trace of hope in his heart before, then when Ninghu revealed his true cultivation, this trace of hope was shattered. If he was not a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge, why would he hide his cultivation for such a long time? Moreover, Ninghu had admitted it himself. Sect leader and, do it? King Gongwu shouted angrily. Blood qi and spiritual energy surged on the surface of his body. His whole body swelled up as he charged towards Ninghu. He did not expect that the target of his mission was actually a spirit ocean cultivator. This was beyond the scope of the A3 team. A spirit ocean cultivator was not someone they, a true lake cultivator, could take down. This time, it would not bode well for them. Of course, he would not abandon his companions and flee. Moreover, in front of a spirit ocean cultivator, fleeing was unrealistic. The only thing he could do now was to combine his and Mafeng's strength and see if they could kill Ninghu. You've misjudged me by relying on this useless senior martial brother. Ninghu's eyes became as sharp as an eagle's. If the Immortal Dawn Mountain had been handed over to me, it would have been promoted to the top 3 grades long ago. It would not have been wasted until now. As soon as he finished speaking, he met King Gongwu's fist with his own. The ghost fighting technique did not seem to be very effective. Under the fierce vibration, Ninghu's blood qi was accumulated. However, this was not the end. Ninghu grabbed King Gongwu's wrist and pulled him in front of him. His other fist was aimed at King Gongwu's chest. His movements were clean and agile. Obviously, he was an experienced fighter. Boom. A loud sound was heard. Behind King Gongwu, Gao Gonglong stood up, and at the same time, a shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye exploded, and blood gushed out from his mouth. The huge difference in cultivation allowed Ninghu to crush King Gongwu, a true Lake 9th Order cultivator, even without using his divine sense. Releasing his hand, King Gongwu's aura weakened and he fell into the lake. Ninghu turned around and looked at Nu Feng coldly. Sure Yuan, if you had joined forces with him just now, even if you could not defeat me, you could have stalled for a while. What are you hesitating for? Are you still going to be so naive? You're too disappointing. The Immortal Dawn Mountain will not have a good ending in your hands. If that's the case, why don't I destroy it first? Saying so, he rose into the sky and flew straight into the depths of the sect. Old and recalled what Ninghu had said before and his temper when he was young. He hurriedly chased after him. Stop. I'm afraid you're really the Thousand Demons Ridge's virgin. The sect has raised and taught you for so many years. You can't do this. You're still so stubborn. When will you? How long would it take for him to wake up? I'm going to fire sect now. You're talking to me about gay principles? If you have the ability, you can stop me. The two figures quickly disappeared into the distance. The peace of the place was broken. After they left, a group of embarrassed figures emerged from the lake. They were the members of Team A3. Under the impact of their divine sense, Except for the strongest King Gongwu and Lu Yi, the rest fell into the water. It was only now that they regained their senses. They rushed out of the water and landed by the lakeside, coughing nonstop. Mu Jing, who was the most meticulous, turned around and was shocked. "Where's Captain and Lu Yi?" There was no trace of them in the surroundings, but when they were underwater, they could clearly feel the movements of the experts fighting. When they looked at the floating boat, there was a pool of blood on the surface of the water. "Captain, he wouldn't." Mu Zheng's eyes turned red. Kang Yuanxiao immediately stood up and was about to enter the water again. At this moment, with a splash, Hu Po, who had returned to his true form, walked out of the lake with Lu Yi on his back and King Gongwu in his mouth. "Captain!" A few people exclaimed and rushed forward to check the situation. After checking, they found that King Gongwu was seriously injured and unconscious. Although Lu Yi was awake, he also looked injured. "What should we do?" Mu Jing did not know what to do. She thought it was going to be an easy mission. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? 4 of the 6 people in the team died when the enemy turned hostile. It was embarrassing. Send a message back first. Kang Yuanxiao took out his guard token. It was not their fault that something like this happened. It was the fault of the person in charge of the intelligence department. In such a situation, they could only send a message quickly. The Grand Sky City would mobilize the nearby Divine Sea Realm experts to deal with this. But that would take time as well. Shrill screams and shouts came from not far away, accompanied by the aftermath of the fierce battle. It was obvious that Ninghu was killing people. His identity was exposed and he could no longer stay in the war province. But before he left, he wanted to do something else. The reason why he did not kill the 6 members of the enforcement team was not because he was merciful, but because he was afraid of the young law department. If he really killed all the members of the enforcement team here, even if he could escape back to the Myriad Devil Ridge, he would have to be on guard against the revenge of the law department. Once he was targeted by the law department, it would be difficult for him to have a good night's sleep. It's not a good place to stay. Let's go. Xiao Ruiyun's face was serious. Kang Yuanxiao shook his head slowly. If we leave like this, we can't report back. Why can't we report back? The mission information was wrong. Isn't it our fault to stay here and wait for death? If we join forces with the people from the Immortal Dawn Mountain, we might be able to take down Ninghu. A Divine Sea Realm cultivator was indeed powerful, but Ninghu was only a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. The few of them were true Lake Realm cultivators, and there were still true Lake Realm cultivators from the Immortal Dawn Mountain. If they worked together, even if they could not take down Ninghu, they could at least stall him. But they would have to be prepared to die. I'm afraid it's too late now. Since Ninghu has already made his move, he will definitely target the true Lake Realm cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain first. He didn't kill us before because he was afraid of the law department. If we really join in, do you think he will go easy on us? He can even kill his own fellow sect members. What can't he do? But our law department is responsible for maintaining stability within the sect and eliminating traitors from the outside. How can we just sit back and do nothing when we encounter such a thing? The 2 of them quarreled fiercely for a while. If King Gongwu was still awake, they would naturally listen to his orders. But King Gongwu was in a coma and the team was like a group of dragons without a leader. In the new month, he continued to ask for votes. Chapter 901. Junior Brother Lu, what do you think? Shangguan Qiu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly turned to look at Lu Yi, who was adjusting his chaotic spirit qi. The A3 team led by King Gongwu had their own strengths, and Shangguan Qiu's was good at observation. Just now, they had experienced a great change and were attacked by the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator. Others might not have paid much attention to it, but Shangguan Qiu did not forget. Before Ningguo could reveal her true cultivation, this able-bodied junior apprentice brother, who had been temporarily pulled in, had already slashed out with his blade. This undoubtedly meant that he was extremely sensitive to the impending crisis, which was why he was able to attack before Ningguo. After all, Ninghu was a hidden spirit sea realm cultivator. Such keen senses could be said to be terrifying. In this situation, it was not wrong to ask Lu Ye's opinion. You can't judge a book by its cover. Shangguan Qiu would never underestimate others just because of their low cultivation. Just as King Gongwu said before, who didn't start from the first order true lake realm? What's the point of asking him? Xiao Ruiyun said impatiently, he's just a first order true lake realm cultivator. Maybe he hasn't even seen a real battlefield. In this situation, it's better to retreat quickly. Shangguan Qiu glanced at him. If Captain is awake, he probably won't make this choice. But Captain is already unconscious, and Captain will never joke about our lives. Amidst the noise, Lu Yi suddenly stood up with his long saber and took a few deep breaths. His chest and abdomen were aching, but other than that he was fine. It didn't affect his strength at all. He waved his hand, and Hooper immediately turned into the size of a cat and jumped onto his shoulder. Junior brother Lu. Kong Yuanxiao looked at him in shock, and the others also looked over. Lu Yi looked in the direction of the screams and fighting sounds, and said slowly, I don't know what you're going to do when you encounter this kind of situation, but I've suffered a loss, so I naturally have to pay for it. If the opportunity is right, I'll pay for it now, immediately. Everyone was stunned. Naturally, they could see Lu Ye's intention to intervene in the affairs of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Even Kong Yuanxiao, who suggested joining forces with the true Lake Realm cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't know where Lu Yi got his courage from. If he went there, he would be facing a warrior at the Spirit Sea Realm. A true lake cultivator naturally had no chance of winning against a god ocean cultivator. Just the suppression of spiritual will alone was enough to consign a true lake cultivator to eternal damnation. But coincidentally, Lu Yi had a rare treasure that could be used to deal with divine sea realm warriors. Thanks to the past master, after the battle of Lonely Mountain City, Lu Yi had asked Tianji to reward him with a huge amount of battle merits, which gave him enough capital to buy that rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. Originally, he just wanted to be safe so that he would be able to fight back when he encountered a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm again. He didn't expect that it would come in handy so soon. Moreover, Lu Yi had received help from many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Especially when his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect was exposed at the Spirit Stream battlefield, there were many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. That was why he was able to reach the top of the Golden Light and hold on until eldest senior sister and fourth senior brother arrived. After that, at the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, he had also received help from some cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Perhaps some of them were from the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Now that the Immortal Dawn Mountain was about to be exterminated, it was fine if Lu Yi didn't have the ability to stop it. But since there was a chance, he had to try. Kid, don't mess around. With your insignificant cultivation, you're just going to die. Xiao Ruiyun shouted. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to him and strode forward. A figure flashed in front of him. Xiao Ruiyun stood in front of him and looked at him firmly. We brought you out, so we have the responsibility to bring you back. Don't go any further. Seeing that Lu Yi didn't stop, Xiao Ruiyun gritted his teeth and raised his guard token, shouting, I order you as the guard token of the military province. Now, immediately, go back. With that, he channeled power into the guard token in his hand. The guard token released a dense yellow light. Lu Yi looked at the guard token in his hand and muttered to himself in silence. Xiao Ruiyun said, I don't care which pass you're from, but according to the military province's guard law, if there's an emergency, the one with the highest military rank has the right to command. Even if you're new to the province guard, you should have heard of this law. There was indeed such a rule in the guard law. Normally, the rank of the soldier was only the standard for the amount of salary a cultivator received each month. It also only had effect within the same pass. For example, if Lu Yi was in the Ash Flame Mountain Pass, then within this pass, he could mobilize and command all the province guards with lower military ranks than him, no matter how high their cultivation was. Of course, right now, the Ash Flame Mountain Pass only had him and Thought Moon Immortal, so he couldn't command anyone else. Once he left the pass, his military rank might not necessarily be in charge. This was also a law set to prevent cultivators with high military ranks from abusing their power. However, in an emergency like the one before him, the military rank determined the size of the right to speak. Lu Yi didn't think of using his military rank to pressure others. His cultivation was right there, so what was the use of having a high military rank? It was better to not do things that were difficult to convince others. Moreover, he and the people of Team A3 had only met by chance and were pulled in to carry out the mission together. They didn't know each other that well, so he didn't want the others to help him and prepared to go alone. Because he himself didn't know how useful that strange treasure would be. If it was really useful, perhaps it could resolve the danger of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. If it was useless, then he would have to retreat. However, the other party held the guard token in front of him, so Lu Yi had no choice but to respond. He untied the guard token at his waist and waved it at Xiao Ruiyun. "I'm afraid you can't order me around." The sudden burst of purple light almost blinded Xiao Ruiyun's eyes. Kang Yuanxiao and the others also stared at Lu Yi's back in a daze, their hearts in turmoil. It wasn't until Lu Yi soared into the sky and flew towards the depths of the Immortal Dawn Mountain that Mu Zheng exclaimed, "Captain!" The few of them were all captains. It wasn't that their cultivation wasn't high enough, but that they didn't have enough battle merits. Only their captain, who had stayed in the True Lake stage for a longer time, was given the rank of captain. However, their captain, King Gung Wu, was in the True Lake stage 9th order, while Lu Yi was only in the 1st order. Xiao Ruiyun originally wanted to use his military rank to order Lu Yi to retreat, but he didn't expect Lu Yi's military rank to be one level higher than his. How could he order him around? Lu Yi already gave him a lot of face by not ordering him to follow along. "Captain is awake." A low shout was heard. Everyone didn't have time to be shocked by Lu Yi's captain anymore and gathered around King Gung Wu. At this time, the square of the Immortal Dawn Mountain's main peak was covered in blood and corpses. Surprisingly, Ning Hu had already started his massacre. There were more than 20 True Lake stage cultivators in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. It could be said that their foundation was quite good, but most of them weren't in the sect. They were either working for the state guards or wandering outside for other reasons. There were only 7 True Lake stage cultivators in the sect, including an Mo Feng and Ning Hu. At this moment, 3 of them were already dead. Their bodies were covered in blood and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The remaining few, including an Mo Feng, were all injured. Obviously, they had just fought a fierce battle with Ning Hu. When Lu Yi arrived, he saw many cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain looking at Ning Hu with anger and shock. Ning Hu was also carrying a young man who was only in the 3rd order Cloud River realm. The young man was about the same age as Lu Yi. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, his talent was obviously extraordinary. In a 4th grade sect like the Immortal Dawn Mountain, he would definitely be the future mainstay of the sect. The impression that Ning Gu gave to everyone in the Immortal Dawn Mountain was one of benevolence and warmth. The lake that he cultivated in seclusion was a place that anyone could enter. Many disciples would seek advice from him when they met with difficulties in cultivation. Thus, when he suddenly revealed a side that no one knew about, not only were the normal disciples unable to accept it, even the True Lake stage elders were unable to accept it. The contrast was too big. However, there were at least a few dozen corpses all over the square. It was clear that Ning Hu was a spy of the 10,000 Demon Ridge. When Lu Yi hurried over, Ning Gu turned to look at him. There was a hint of envy in his eyes. Everything was afraid of comparison. The young man in his hand was about the same age as the young man from the law department, but their cultivation and temperament were completely different. Why couldn't the Immortal Dawn Mountain cultivate such an outstanding disciple when others had one? However, his goal wasn't Lu Yi, so he didn't pay much attention to him after a glance. A 1st order True Lake stage cultivator couldn't change the current situation. At the same time, Lu Yi also had doubts in his heart. Why didn't Ning Hu escape? His identity had been exposed and he had admitted it. Logically speaking, he could have escaped quickly. Otherwise, once the law department mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea stage cultivators, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Not only did he not escape, but he also came here to start a massacre? What was his intention? If it was as he said, it would take him a lot of time to destroy the Immortal Dawn Mountain by himself, even if he could do it. As his thoughts raced, Lu Yi noticed something. Ninghu didn't want to leave here alive. Even if he escaped, he wouldn't be able to escape the sphere of influence of the War Province's Grand Heaven Alliance. As for his real purpose, Lu Yi didn't know. A young man who was sent here by the 10,000 Demon Ridge and hid for nearly 100 years had his roots in the 10,000 Demon Ridge, but his cultivation was all in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Whether he was from the 10,000 Demon Ridge or the Grand Heaven Alliance, who could say for sure? At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind. Lu Yi turned around and saw King Gongwu and the others from the A3 squad rushing over. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gongwu let out a long sigh of relief. The other members didn't know Lu Ye's background. They only thought that he was a man that King Gongwu randomly picked on the street. Although King Gongwu wasn't too sure, he was still the person chosen by the Division Lord. If anything happened to him, it would be difficult to explain to the Division Lord. Chapter 902. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gongwu heaved a sigh of relief. No wonder he was chosen by the sect leader. In such a situation, he actually dared to come here alone. Not to mention other things, just this courage alone was enough to surpass the other members of his team. Senior Gung, Lu Yi called out softly. King Gongwu nodded. He looked at the situation and frowned. He had the same question as Lu Yi. Why didn't Ninggu escape? Before he could figure it out, he heard Ninggu yelling, Senior Gung, can't you see through the situation? Blood flowed from the corner of Enmofeng's mouth. He covered his chest with his hand and said, No matter what, let Ziyen go first. You watched him grow up. The young cultivator called Ziyen, who was being held in Ninggu's hand, said with difficulty, Grand Elder, please spare my life. Ninggu shook his head slowly and looked at Enmofeng bitterly. Senior Gung, you disappoint me. Our talents were similar in the past, but now I'm at the Divine Ocean level. What about you? You're still stuck at the True Lake level. You used more cultivation resources in the sect, but now I'm at a higher level. Do you know why? Enmofeng sighed. The old sect leader once said that in terms of talent, you're better than me. Bullshit. Ninggu shouted angrily. That old thing's eyesight is bad. He can't even see that I'm a spy from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What else can he see? Today, I'll tell you why I can reach the Divine Ocean level but you can't. As he spoke, he took a step forward. It's because you've always placed your hopes on others. You've never thought of fighting for yourself. Generation after generation, you've always been able to reach the Divine Ocean level. You made the leading immortal Changshan Pu rise to the ranks of the 3rd rank. You are one, your teeth are overboard. It is better to rely on yourself than on others. Don't forget that you're the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Enmofeng was slightly dazed by Ninggu's loud roar. He thought back to the past few decades and realized that what Ninggu said was true. After realizing that he wouldn't be able to step into the Divine Sea realm for a long time, he had placed all his hopes on the disciples below him, losing all will to struggle and strive. Ninghu continued, In the last generation, you placed all your hopes on that little brat surnamed Zhong, but in the end, he died just after breaking through to the Cloud River realm. In this generation, you have placed all your hopes on Ziyen. His luck is better than that little brat surnamed Zhong's, and he is now a 3rd order Cloud River realm cultivator, but how can you guarantee that he won't die prematurely? So what if he managed to cultivate all the way to the True Lake 9th order? Can you guarantee that he can ascend to the Divine Sea? I can do it, Great Elder. The young man called Ziyen shouted. I can definitely do it. No one can be certain about the future. He tightened his grip, and Ziyen couldn't make a sound. He looked up at Enmofeng and said, Senior brother, you have the potential to reach the Divine Sea realm. It's just that your temperament and spirit have been destroyed. Enmofeng sighed. What's the point of saying all this now? Of course. Ninghu suddenly laughed. Enmofeng suddenly realized that something was wrong and asked in surprise, What are you going to do? Cut off the expectations and thoughts in your heart. You can only rely on yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, Ninghu tightened his grip and with a cracking sound, Ziyan's neck was crushed. The light in his eyes quickly dimmed. Although Ninghu had gone on a killing spree and killed dozens of people, no one had expected that he would really kill Ziyan. Because in the past, the relationship between the grandfather and grandson was very good. Ziyan could be said to have watched Ninghu grow up and taught him. Ninghu could be considered half his master. Even so, Ninghu had killed Ziyan without hesitation. His ruthlessness was shocking. Ninghu threw Ziyan's body aside like a rag and shouted, "Senior brother, whether you can protect the immortal Dawn Mountain or not depends on yourself. You have to hurry." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards the place where the crowd was the densest. How could the immortal Dawn Mountain disciples resist when a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator attacked so unscrupulously? In an instant, many of them died. A few injured elders beside Mofeng were furious. They no longer cared about the difference in strength between them and rushed towards Ninghu to stop him. And Mofeng himself seemed to be dumbfounded. He stood there with his eyes filled with confusion. Stop him. On the other side, almost as soon as Ninghu attacked, King Gongwu ordered and rushed out. The rest of the team followed closely behind and joined the battle. In an instant, a great battle broke out and spirit energy surged. Including the true Lake Realm elders and the members of Team A3, there were 8 true Lake Realm cultivators present. King Gongwu was a true Lake Realm 9th Order cultivator. With such a lineup, they could barely fight against Ninghu. But they were still not his match. The gap of a great realm was extremely terrifying. So, even though Lu Ye's team had the advantage in numbers, they were still at a disadvantage. Fortunately, the members of Team A3 cooperated well, so there were no casualties. Especially King Gongwu, who was the strongest among them. He used all his strength and restrained 30% of Ninghu's energy by himself. Lu Yi did not have the tacit understanding of Team A3, so he tried his best not to disrupt their cooperation. In addition, his cultivation was the lowest, so he had been wandering around since the beginning of the battle. It was not that he cherished his life, but he was waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity to use the treasure in his hand. Ninghu did not use his divine sense. It was not that he could not, but even as a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, using his divine sense consumed a lot of spirit energy. Especially since he was only a 2nd Order Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he naturally would not rashly use his trump card. This gave the others a chance to entangle him. But the battle could not continue like this. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the 2 true Lake Realm elders of Immortal Dawn Mountain had fallen to the ground one after another. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. On Team A3's side, King Gongwu was bleeding from his 7 orifices. Kong was suffering from the backlash of his technique, so the spirit energy in his body was in chaos. It was difficult for him to do anything. Mu Zheng, the female cultivator, was even worse. Besides Lu Yi, her cultivation was the lowest in the team. Just now, she was caught off guard and was punched in the stomach by Ninghu. She was sent flying 20 feet away. At this moment, she was leaning against a wall and constantly coughing up blood. Obviously, she did not have any energy left to fight. On the contrary, Lu Yi, who had the lowest cultivation, was in the best condition. First, he had been wandering around the periphery, not giving Ninghu a chance to seriously injure him. Second, with the help of Returning Moon and the defensive spirit rune, he could at least protect himself from the aftermath of the battle. The opportunity he had been waiting for did not come, but his team was about to collapse first. Once King Gongwu and the others were seriously injured and unable to fight back, everyone could only wait for death. "Captain, if the people from the Law Division don't come, I'm afraid I'll have to go first." Xiao Ruiyun roared as he struggled to defend against Ninghu's frenzied attacks. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from his arm. It was his arm bone that was broken. Although he had advocated for an immediate retreat and even used the guard token to stop Lu Yi when he moved, he did not hesitate to use the guard token. However, when it came to the real battle, he was not careless at all. There were a few times when he blocked the aftermath of Lu Ye's attacks. "Hold on a little longer, they are on their way," King Gongwu replied. As if King Gongwu's words made Ninghu feel a sense of danger, he frowned and no longer wanted to continue the battle. In the next moment, His divine sense surged and turned into an invisible force that blasted towards King Jianghu. At the moment when he used his divine sense to attack, Lu Yi, who had been waiting for a long time, also activated his divine sense at the same time. An almost transparent small sword without a handle shot out from his hand. Deity Vanquishing Sword. This was a rare treasure that cost Lu Yi 26,000 battle points. It was the reason why he dared to fight against Ninghu. The Deity Vanquishing Sword was meant to vanquish one's divine sense. He did not know how powerful this rare treasure was. In addition, there was a huge gap between his cultivation level and Ninghu's. Therefore, he did not dare to use it recklessly and had been waiting. He was waiting for the moment when Ninghu activated his divine sense. The Deity Vanquishing Sword turned into a sharp ray of light and arrived in front of Ninghu in an instant, breaking his divine sense attack. Ninghu could not help but let out a muffled groan. This was the danger of a battle between divine sense cultivators. Although divine sense cultivators were born in the divine sea realm, they would not activate their divine sense attacks easily because it would give their enemies an opportunity to attack. Ninghu did not expect that the weakest cultivator present would have a way to deal with him. In a moment of carelessness, his divine sense was broken and he felt a sharp pain in his head. Originally, his divine sense attack was aimed at King Jianghu. If he had used it fully, King Jianghu would have been stunned and his life would be in danger. However, after his divine sense was broken, King Jianghu only felt a slight dizziness in his head and then he was fine. On the other hand, Ninghu endured the pain of his divine sense being broken and raised his hand to catch the Deity Vanquishing Sword. Seeing this, Lu Ye's heart sank. This was the weapon he relied on to deal with divine sea realm cultivators. He had spent 26,000 battle points to exchange for this rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. He had high hopes for it, but it turned out like this. Just when he thought that the Deity Vanquishing Sword did not live up to its name, the rare treasure that he caught suddenly slashed out a small ray of sword light. The ray of sword light cut into Ninghu's forehead, but it did not cause any harm to him. Instead, it disappeared the moment it came into contact with him. However, Ninghu felt as if he was hit by a hammer. His head jerked back and his body staggered backward. He could not help but let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword. At the same time, he let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword and let out a miserable scream. The sudden change of events confused everyone. However, they knew that it must be the work of Lu Ye's rare treasure. King Jianghu was extremely good at grasping opportunities. Almost at the same time Ninghu retreated, King Jianghu rushed forward and punched out with both of his fists. There was a loud boom, Ninghu's skinny body flew out and he spat out blood in the air. Rays of sword light chased after Ninghu. It was Kong Yuanxiao's flying sword. Lu Yi also raised his saber and stabbed out with the starry sky sword. Brother Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met someone he knew, he would greet them or nod his head. But no matter who it was, everyone's face was expressionless. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was already used to it. This was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main job was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When Shen Zhangqing first came to this world, he was not used to it. But as time passed, he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was huge. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. The Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian, and the other was the Demon Slayer. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Slayer. Then, they would advance step by step until they finally had a chance to become a Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a Demon Slayer trainee in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level Demon Slayer trainee. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It did not take long for Zhangqing to stop in front of a loft. Unlike the other places in the demon suppression department that were filled with killing intent, this loft was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the demon suppression department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the loft's door was open. Occasionally, people would enter and leave. Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. He entered the loft. The environment suddenly changed. A faint smell of ink mixed with the faint smell of blood wafted over. His brows instinctively furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the demon suppression department was almost impossible to clean. Chapter 903. When the attacks stopped, Ning, whose hair was disheveled and his body was like a broken sieve, bleeding profusely. He was caught off guard by the attack of the rare treasure, which caused him to suffer greatly. However, he was still alive. Not only that, but the pain in his soul made his counterattack even more violent. If Ning, who was crazy before, he still had his own thoughts. Now, he was like a madman. Fortunately, his soul was damaged and his mind was in a mess. Therefore, although his attacks were fierce, they did not have a clear goal. King Gongwu was scared out of his wits as he fought with Ninghu. Even Kang Yuanxiao's flying sword was not enough to support Ninghu. Ninghu had lost his biggest advantage in the Spirit Sea realm after his spiritual will was broken. However, his cultivation of spiritual power was still there. It was not easy to defeat someone like him. Senior brother Geng, dodge. Lu Yi roared and something appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and threw it at Ninghu. King Gongwu reacted quickly. Although it was the first time he worked with Lu Yi to kill an enemy, he had great trust in Lu Yi. Almost as soon as Lu Yi opened his mouth, King Gongwu retreated. Boom! A loud sound was heard. In the midst of the flames, the impact of the explosion and the scorching heat wave drowned Ninghu. King Gongwu, who had retreated not far away, saw this scene and his eyelids twitched. He was glad that he dodged quickly. If he was a little slower, he would have been engulfed. Although this kind of power would not kill him, it was enough to make him lose face. What is this? When King Gongwu turned his head to look, he saw Lu Ye's hands clasping onto another item that exploded just now. King Gongwu was at a loss as he realized that those items were just spirit stones, the fire spirit stones of the 5 elemental spirit stones. Bao King Gongwu knew that the fire attribute spiritual energy within the fire spirit stone was violent and unstable. Therefore, he had to be careful when handling the fire spirit stone because the fire attribute spiritual energy within it could dissipate if it were to be touched. He had never heard of this kind of thing exploding. Moreover, its power was not bad. It was almost equivalent to the full-strength attack of a true Lake Realm cultivator. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Yi kept throwing out the fire stones, which were branded with explosive inscriptions, one after another, turning them into balls of scorching flames that wrapped around Ninghu's body. Normally, such an attack would not work, because a warrior at the Spirit Sea realm would not stand there and take his attack like a fool. But Ninghu's divine will was broken, and his head was hurting. His mind was in a mess, and he could only rely on his instincts. There was no way he could avoid such an attack. Fire spiritual stone and explosion spiritual tattoo were the means of fighting against the enemy. Some killing weapons found by Lu Yi in the underground karst cave should be refined by the Fire Spirit clan. Although the patterns on them were not exactly the same as the explosion spiritual tattoo, it was enough to inspire a real spiritual tattooist. This was the first time Lu Yi had used such a method against an enemy, and it was against a Spirit Sea realm warrior. The effect was surprisingly good. The sound of explosions rang out continuously. Kang Wang thought that these things had been specially refined, but in reality, Lu Yi had only imprinted explosive spirit patterns on the fire spirit stones the moment he took them out and then tossed them out. While taking out the fire spirit rock, Lu Yi secretly activated his divine sense to check Ninghu's condition. He was startled. Ninghu still had some vitality in him. He wasn't dead yet. Lu Yi could not help but exclaim that Ninghu was a Spirit Sea realm warrior after all. As Jianghu prepared to keep attacking like this to wear Ninghu to death, Ninghu suddenly pounced on Jianghu from the raging fire. At this moment, Ninggu could only follow his instinct. Killing Lu Yi was his instinct to protect himself. The only thought he had left was that if he didn't kill Lu Yi, he would die soon. Oh no! King Gongwu thought that the battle was over. Seeing Ninghu's actions, he was shocked and wanted to stop him. 6 Origin Spirit Lock. Lu Yi roared. Ninghu's divine will had been broken, and he could not use his divine will to attack like before. Therefore, as long as he could take him down with the 6 Origin Spirit Lock, he would be able to win. But before that, he had to think of a way to stay alive in front of the furious Ninghu. He continued to throw out the Fire Spirit Rock. Along with the powerful impact, it still could not stop a Spirit Sea Realm warrior. King Gongwu blocked Lu Ye's path and delayed him for a while. Lu Yi quickly took out formation flags and threw them in all directions. At the same time, he activated his spiritual energy to connect the formation flags, and a core spiritual inscription appeared on them. King Gongwu was sent flying. Ninghu pounced on Lu Yi like a cheetah pouncing on its prey. Before he arrived, he had already clawed at Lu Yi. As Lu Yi slashed forward with his saber, he borrowed the force of the attack to retreat. Ninghu landed on the ground. However, before he could launch a second attack, Lu Yi had already activated the power of the formation. Suddenly, a visible light curtain rose and turned into a transparent semicircle, trapping Ninghu inside. Ninghu pounced but was stopped by the light curtain. He was so angry that he roared like an injured beast. His frenzied attacks made the light curtain of the trapping formation dim at a speed visible to the naked eye. The great saint of human Tao, domain named such a trapping formation could only trap him for a second. Many figures landed in all directions. They were the members of the A3 team. It was the same as when they first saw Ninghu on the lake. Everyone was injured, and a few of them had lost the ability to fight. However, they had no problem using their 6 Origins Spirit Lock. Almost at the moment when Lu Ye's trapping formation was broken, the 6 Origins Spirit Lock came into effect. In an instant, Lu Ye's spiritual energy was sealed. Ninghu, who had finally reached Lu Yi, was kicked back. With his divine will broken and his spiritual energy sealed, Ninghu's physical body, which had been cultivating for his whole life, was limited. Naturally, he could not block Lu Ye's kick. Just as he flew into the air, 2 dragon-binding ropes were released. When he landed, he was tied up like a dumpling. Saber! King Gongwu stretched out his hand to Lu Yi. Lu Yi understood tacitly and tossed his magic tool long saber over. King Gongwu strode forward and arrived in front of Ninghu in a flash. He stabbed his Dharma weapon into Ninghu's heart. The original mission for this trip was to bring Ninghu back to Grand Sky City alive, but many unforeseen events had occurred, and the target of the mission had changed from a true Lake Realm 9th Order to a 2nd Order Divine Sea Realm. Naturally, they couldn't leave him alive. Who knew what would happen next? If Ninghu managed to break free again, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Facing such a situation, they could only kill him to prevent future troubles. As the long saber pierced through his body, Ninghu, who was struggling madly, felt as if he was struck by a lightning talisman. He instinctively smashed his head into King Gongwu's head. King Gongwu staggered back and pulled out his Dharma weapon. Blood gushed out from Ninghu's heart like a fountain. Maybe it was the final radiance of the setting sun, or maybe it was the headbutt that gave him a brief moment of clarity. He raised his eyes and looked at an Mo Feng, who had been standing there since the beginning of the battle as if he had lost his mind. A look of disappointment flashed across his cloudy eyes. He slowly turned his head and took one last look at the scenery that had accompanied him for decades. He sighed. The foundation of our ancestors for hundreds of years is going to be ruined in the end. Then he looked at Lu Yi and nodded slightly. You're good. As soon as he finished speaking, he fell on his back and died. The whole place was silent. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. Captain, is he dead? After a long time, Xiao Ruiyun asked with a pale face. His spiritual energy was in a mess and he could barely maintain his 6 Origin Spirit Lock. King Gongwu turned his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He's not dead. Xiao Ruiyun's face turned bitter. Captain, I'm not asking you. I'm asking if he's dead. King Gongwu glared at him. My saber pierced his heart. Do you think he's dead or not? He casually threw the blood-stained saber back to Lu Yi. Hearing him say that, the members of the team suddenly relaxed. They were all exhausted and sat on the ground. King Gongwu looked at Lu Yi. Are you okay? Lu Yi shook off the blood on his saber and sheathed it. He slowly shook his head. I'll be on guard. Everyone heal yourselves. Among the people present, he was the one with the lightest injuries. It was his duty to be on guard. Thank you. The injuries of the A3 team varied. Fortunately, no one died. However, the Immortal Dawn Mountains suffered a great loss this time. Not to mention the fact that the Great Elder, Jianghu, was a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Even the few true Lake Stage elders who stayed behind died in the battle. As for the other disciples who were killed by Jianghu, there were at least a dozen of them. Although this was not enough to cause serious damage to a rank 4 sect, it was still a great loss. The few true Lake Stage elders who were still alive all sent people to comfort the disciples. They also organized people to treat the injured and clean up the battlefield. They were extremely busy. At this moment, the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Mofeng, suddenly staggered. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell on his back. Sect leader! A true Lake Stage elder turned pale with fright and went forward to investigate. Once again it was chaos. Suddenly, there was a clear sound of a sword. Then, a ray of sword light landed on the battlefield. The sword light disappeared, revealing a short old man. He was emitting a powerful aura. It was obvious that he was a Divine C Stage cultivator. The Divine C Stage cultivators from the law department had arrived. But they seemed to be a little late. What's going on? The short old man turned his head and looked around. He was confused for a moment. After receiving the news, he rushed here. He thought that he would definitely see a one-sided massacre here, or that the spy from Myriad Demon's Ridge had already escaped. But now, it seemed that the situation was a little different from what he had imagined. A shocking battle had taken place here, and there were traces of spiritual energy explosions everywhere. Many people had died. Especially the skinny figure with a knife wound on his chest. He took 2 steps forward to take a look. The short old man was shocked. Jianghu! It was the spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge who had reached the Divine C Stage. The great sage of human Tao, but he was dead. Chapter 904. As the leader of the enforcement team, King Gongwu didn't have time to rest when he saw the old sword cultivator. He quickly got up and reported the matter. The short old man was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that these people would be able to kill a second-order Divine C Realm cultivator. Even though he couldn't believe it, the truth was right in front of him. However, there were still many doubts about today's matter. The short old man thought for a moment, then clapped his hands and tapped on his battlefield mark to send a message. At the same time, thousands of miles away, a ray of light shot towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain like a rainbow. Its speed was as fast as lightning. The figure wrapped in the stream of light was the law department head, Gan Wudang. At this moment, Gan Wudang no longer had his usual frivolous look. His face was solemn. Who would have thought that the great elder of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Jianghu, was not only a spy of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, but also a second-order Divine C Realm cultivator. He had never been exposed for so many years. Plus, he had been living in seclusion for so many years. Not many people had even seen him, which led to such a serious error in the intelligence report. When Gan Wudang received the news, he immediately had a thought in his mind. He was finished. This time, it wasn't just Nian Yuxian who was going to break his skull. Even Shui Yuan was going to come too. How could he be a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator? He quickly mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea Realm cultivators to support him. At the same time, he left Grand Sky City and rushed towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain. After so many years as the law department head, this was the first time he left Grand Sky City because there was nothing that required him to do personally. But this time, it was different. Lu Yi was in the A3 team. If something happened to him, Gan Wudang would have a hard time in the future. However, Grand Sky City was far from the Immortal Dawn Mountain road. Even if he was a spirit sea realm cultivator, he couldn't rush there immediately even if he pushed his speed to the limit. He could only pray in his heart that nothing happened to Lui. Halfway through his flight, he suddenly received a message. Gan Wu Dang quickly checked it. His heart was in his throat, afraid that he would see something he didn't want to see. But after a moment, his body suddenly stopped in midair. His expression became strange as he quickly sent a message back. Are you sure Ninghu was killed? This old man saw it with his own eyes. Ninghu's vitality dissipated. The old sword cultivator replied. But what puzzled him was that Ninghu seemed to have been burned by a fire before he died. All the hair on his body was gone, and even the skin that was exposed to the air was charred. Then he reported everything he knew to Qian Wudong. He then added, there are 3 suspicious points about this matter. First, Ninghu's identity was exposed. Why didn't he escape? Instead, he went on a killing spree in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Logically speaking, since Ning Meng's identity was exposed, the first thing she should do was to escape. As for whether she could escape or not, it would depend on her own luck. But not only did he not escape, he even started a massacre of the Immortal Dawn Mountain disciples. Secondly, during the battle, Mofeng didn't interfere. He just stood in place, as if he cherished the brotherhood of the past. Rare treasure? I don't know what kind of treasure it is. After all, I didn't see it with my own eyes. But according to King Gengwu's description, it's a finger-long hiltless sword. I suspect it's the legendary deity vanquishing sword. Deity vanquishing sword. Qian Wudong's face turned serious. It hasn't appeared in the world for decades. The last time it appeared, it was in the hands of that person. After that person died, it disappeared without a trace. Lu Ye and that person came from the same sect. It's not strange for him to have it. I think Tang Yifeng gave it to him to protect himself. Well, if this kid really has the deity vanquishing sword, then it makes sense. Let's not talk about this. What do you think of the other 2 things? The short old man pondered for a while and replied. According to my understanding of Ninghu, he did this to put pressure on Mofeng. He wanted to force him to reach the divine sea level. After his identity was exposed, he didn't immediately run away. Instead, he slaughtered the disciples of Immortal Dawn Mountain. As Mofeng saw this, his mind must have been shaken and his divine soul must have been shaken. Perhaps he might have found a lucky chance to reach the divine sea realm. That's reasonable. That's why Mofeng didn't do anything since the beginning of the battle. He must have felt the opportunity to reach the divine sea level. But judging from the result, he probably failed. If that's the case, Ninghu really put in a lot of effort. After all, he was sent here by the Devil Ridge when he was very young. Although he has the foundation of the Devil Ridge, he grew up in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He spent almost his entire life in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Humans are not plants. If he really had feelings for her, why would he massacre his disciples? I think the most important thing is that he knew he couldn't escape. That's why he made such a choice. You stay there and take care of things. You can leave after you've dealt with the things over there. After ending the communication with the old man, Qian Wudong looked in the direction of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He exhaled heavily and said to himself, the deity vanquishing sword has appeared. What about the soul-severing sword? Back then, this sword and saber had left an indelible psychological shadow on many divine sea-level cultivators in the Devil Ridge. Qian Wudong shook his head and turned back. In the Immortal Dawn Mountain, the disciples suppressed their grief. Under the command of the true Lake Realm elders, they cleaned up the battlefield and cleaned up the corpses of their fellow disciples. Lu Yi and the others were also sent to a spirit mountain to recuperate. The old man didn't leave. Instead, he stayed. King Gengwu couldn't help but feel strange. Logically speaking, there was no reason for First Effect Ke Yicheo to stay and look after them when he saw them leave without a trace. Moreover, the matter here was basically settled. All that was left was for them to recuperate and report back to Grand Sky City. However, if the old man wanted to stay, King Gengwu couldn't say anything. Moreover, this was the territory of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Among the group, Lu Ye's injuries were the lightest. Coupled with his strong body and vigorous vitality, he recovered the fastest. It only took him a day to recover. On the Spirit Mountain, in the pavilion outside the courtyard, Lu Yi took out the deity-vanquishing sword and examined it. This worldly treasure played a miraculous role in the battle against Ninghu. If it wasn't for its sudden burst of power, he wouldn't have been able to break through Ninghu's divine sense. Even though he also had a soul and spiritual will, he was different from the normal Spirit Sea realm cultivators. He had taken an unorthodox path. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't dare to use his divine sense to fight against a divine sea realm cultivator. This was also the reason why he didn't use his divine sense in the previous battle. It wasn't because he wanted to hide it, but because he had scruples. After the deity-vanquishing sword's power was activated, it seemed to have undergone some changes. On the surface, it still looked like a transparent, colorless sword that was only the length of a finger. However, the deity-vanquishing sword had a little spiritual light flowing within it. Now it was gone. The spiritual light had been activated by the deity-vanquishing sword and blasted into Ninghu's divine sea. Although Lu Yi knew that worldly treasures were mostly one-time use items, he still felt that it was a pity. After all, it cost him 26,000 battle points to exchange for it from the War Merit Pavilion. He didn't know if the gains from this trip could make up for his loss. I think it should be enough, right? Suddenly, a shadow fell in front of him. Lu Yi was shocked. He instinctively leaped back and drew his sword. When he looked again, he saw that it was the old sword cultivator. He was standing in the same spot and looking at him with a smile. "Don't be nervous, kid. I mean you no harm. I have some history with your sect master." Lu Yi said cautiously. "Senior, are you talking about a friendship or a grudge?" The old sword cultivator laughed. "It seems like you know your sect master well." Lu Yi said nothing. This old man seemed to have many friends, but he also had many enemies. He had to be on his guard. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a grudge. However, the matters of the older generation should be dealt with by the older generation. It has nothing to do with the younger generation. The old sword cultivator didn't give a clear answer. Lu Yi understood. Even if this old man had some history with the sect master, they probably didn't get along well. As for what he said about the matters of the older generation being dealt with by the older generation, he might be such a person, but others might not be. Lu Yi didn't forget that when he was rushing to Grand Heaven City from the Blue Blood sect, he encountered many things along the way. If it weren't for his second senior apprentice sister secretly protecting him, he probably wouldn't have been able to issue orders within the time limit. If he couldn't issue orders, then it would be Wei Lu Mountain. Obviously, it was an expert who had a grudge against the Blue Blood sect. Lu Yi still didn't know who was behind the scenes. Perhaps he would never know. "Can you let this old man see the thing in your hand?" the old sword cultivator asked. Lu Yi naturally didn't want to, but the difference in cultivation base was obvious. He couldn't win against the old man, so he threw the deity-vanquishing sword over. He said casually, "This thing has lost its power and is useless. It's just that its quality is a little special. It was quite good to use as an imperial tool. It really is the deity-vanquishing sword." The old man's words startled Lu Yi. "Senior, you recognize this thing?" It didn't make sense. This thing was exchanged in the War Merit Pavilion. He went to the Tianji treasure vault to look for it, but he didn't find the deity-vanquishing sword. How did this old man know about a treasure unique to the War Merit Pavilion? "I recognize it." The old man nodded. "But I haven't seen it for decades. When Tang Yifeng passed this thing to you, didn't he tell you how to use it? What does it have to do with the sect master?" Lu Yi was suspicious and slowly shook his head. "Told." The old man laughed and threw the deity-vanquishing sword back to Lu Yi. "Although I don't know the mystery of this thing, it's not a one-time treasure. It can be used many times. Decades ago, it was a treasure in the hands of your eldest senior apprentice brother. It was a killing weapon that made the divine sea realm in myriad demons' ridge tremble in fear. Now that it's in your hands, I hope you won't bury its reputation." Chapter 905. The old sword cultivator had already left. The reason why he showed up was probably because he wanted to see the deity vanquishing sword with his own eyes. However, Lu Yi could not calm down for a long time. Compared to what the old man said about the deity vanquishing sword not being a one-time use rare treasure, Lu Yi was more concerned about the fact that he mentioned his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually didn't know much about the eldest senior brother that he had never met, but he knew that his eldest senior brother was truly a stunning talent, a peerless figure that only appeared once in 10,000 years. Back then, the Jade Blood sect rose because of him, but also fell because of him. The poison left behind decades ago still lingered. His eldest senior brother once had the deity vanquishing sword. In other words, the person who entered the War Merit Pavilion before him was indeed his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually had some guesses about this because when he first entered the War Merit Pavilion, the two dragons had said that no one had entered the War Merit Pavilion for decades. Who could be more amazing than his eldest senior brother a few decades ago? Other than him, who else was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion? A few decades ago, the deity vanquishing sword was in his eldest senior brother's hands. A few decades later, this item was in his hands. That was why the old sword cultivator had the illusion that this item belonged to the Jade Blood sect. A few thousand years after his eldest senior brother's death, the sect master passed it to him. Naturally, Lu Yi wouldn't try to explain the misunderstanding that had arisen. But this item was not a one-time use rare treasure. What did it mean? The spiritual light within the deity vanquishing sword had been activated. Now, the deity vanquishing sword was indeed made of a special material. Lu Yi originally intended to use it as a royal equipment. However, the old sword cultivator's words made Lu Yi think of a possibility. Since he was in another sect, it was inconvenient for him to verify it, so he put this item aside for now. King Gongwu and the others would probably need to rest for a few more days. The current environment was not suitable for cultivation, and it was not convenient for him to activate the talent tree to devour the fire spirit right. Lu Yi simply closed his eyes and focused, imprinting the soaring dragon's origin. He searched for the brightest light in the endless sea of stars and followed the peak powerhouses of the soaring dragon realm to experience their magnificent lives. For some reason, when Lu Yi imprinted the soaring dragon's origin this time, he felt a little different from before. However, he could not pinpoint exactly what was different about it. But soon, a huge surprise fell on his head. Because this time, the imprinted target. Tears streamed down Lu Ye's face. It wasn't easy. Since he had obtained the Dragon Soaring Realm's broken source, he had the ability to imprint. Up until now, he had imprinted at least 80, if not 100, essences of powerful cultivators from various factions. There were even quite a few sword cultivators. This was because it was very easy for sword cultivators to appear among them. This caused the essences left behind by those sword cultivators to be even brighter, making it easier for Lu Yi to choose. After imprinting so many essences and witnessing the cultivation of so many experts from so many different factions and eras, Lu Yi now had expertise in every faction. When he transformed into Fierce Bull and cast spells, even Endless Shadow, who had spent a lot of time with him, couldn't see any flaws. Back when Pan Shandao was upgraded, he used his long spear to fight against Feng Ruli. Feng Ruli was beaten to the point of doubting his life. However, he had not met a single weapon cultivator who used sabers. This had become an obsession in Lu Ye's heart. Finally, today, the bitterness was over and the sweetness was about to come. He quickly immersed his mind and followed this saber-wielding weapon cultivator as he cultivated and grew. Time passed. When Lu Yi opened his eyes, they shone brightly. Obviously, he had gained a lot. This time, the target he chose to imprint was also at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. His life's cultivation was a rare treasure for Lu Yi. The only imperfection was that this expert's path was somewhat different from Lu Ye's. Lu Ye's personality was more compatible with the tyrannical and violent saber techniques of the Tyrant Saber technique. The saber of this expert from the Soaring Dragon realm was more agile. However, the stone of another mountain could be used to polish the jade. Cultivating until now, Lu Yi had his own perseverance and style. Naturally, he would not be easily influenced by others. Learning from other people's cultivation experience and strengthening his own foundation was the way to go. How long has it been? Lu Yi asked. Every time he imprinted the dragon soaring realm's essences, he would record the time. Because as his cultivation improved and his spirit grew stronger, the time it took to imprint was also slowly decreasing. At first, it took Lu Yi 2 or 3 days to imprint the essences, but last time, it only took less than a day. This was growth. 4 hours, Yi, who was hiding in Hu Po's body, quietly replied. Lu Yi was slightly surprised and then overjoyed. So, this was what he felt strange about. He had a strange feeling just now. He felt that the dragon soaring realm's essences today was a little different from before, but he could not pinpoint the specific difference. It was only now that he was sure of one thing. The time it took for him to imprint the essences was greatly reduced. This should not be just because he had advanced to the true lake realm. The most important reason was that he had developed spiritual sense. Imprinting the essences consumed the power of his spirit. Now that he had developed a soul body and developed spiritual sense, the efficiency was naturally greatly increased. Perhaps one day, he could reach the level where he could imprint the essences left behind by those experts in his heart with just a thought. When that time came, he could imprint the dragon soaring realm's essences anytime, anywhere, and quickly absorb its nutrients. He could gather the strengths of hundreds of schools and eliminate the impurities. Imprinting the many insights of that expert in saber techniques churned in his heart. Lu Yi stood up and landed in the air. He pulled out the long saber at his waist and danced as he wished. In an instant, spiritual energy surged and saber light flashed. This time's imprinting allowed him to make a huge breakthrough in his saber techniques. Although his cultivation did not increase at all, his means of dealing with enemies had greatly improved. Suddenly, Lu Ye's figure froze and his long saber slashed forward in a domineering manner. At this moment, Lu Yi felt as if he was in an endless starry sky with a crescent moon hanging high behind him. From this crescent moon, endless crescent-like saber lights fell down. The sound of the air being torn apart rang out incessantly. The crescent-shaped blade gleams contained an extremely shocking amount of killing power, cutting huge gullies in the ground all around. Even the entire spirit mountain shook. Tyrant Saber Art's second form, Crescent Moon. The inheritance of the Tyrant Saber Art was hidden in an inconspicuous black stone. By immersing one's soul into it, one could obtain its true inheritance. When Lu Yi obtained the inheritance, he had comprehended the first form, Vast Star. At that time, he was only a 6th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. After such a long time, he had already mastered the first form. In his spare time, he had also tried to comprehend the second form of the Tyrant Saber Art, but his gains were not great. Until today, after imprinting the life of that master in the soaring dragon realm and absorbing the essence and philosophy of this master's saber techniques, Lu Yi was finally able to fully display the second form. Compared to the first form, Vast Star, the second form, Crescent Moon, was undoubtedly more lethal. Moreover, this saber seemed to be suitable for fighting against many enemies at once. However, the consumption was also greater. After displaying this saber, Lu Ye's arms were slightly sore and his blood was boiling. One had to know that he was now in the true lake realm, yet this saber strike consumed so much of his Saint Qi. Now it seemed that the reason he could not comprehend the second form when he was in the Cloud River realm was not because his perception was insufficient, but because his cultivation was insufficient. Now that he was in the true lake realm, everything fell into place naturally. The first form was named after the star, the second form was named after the moon, and Lu Yi roughly understood what the third form was. It must be named after the sun. However, he did not try to comprehend the third style. After this experience, Lu Yi understood one thing. If one's cultivation was not high enough, comprehending it would not be of much use. It would be better to imprint the origin of the dragon soaring realm's powerhouses. If he was lucky, he might encounter a powerhouse with the saber. The huge commotion here immediately alarmed King Gengwu and the others who were recuperating in various rooms in the small courtyard. With the sound of something breaking through the air, figures appeared one after another. Turning their heads to take a look, they realized that it was not an enemy attack, but Lu Yi practicing his saber here. Looking at the mess all around, Xiao Ruiyun could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Oh my god! Such a scene was caused by a first-order true lake realm cultivator? The ground was covered in deep gullies that were 3 feet deep and several meters long. Not far away, there were huge saber marks left on the mountain walls. Even if he was a 5th-order true lake realm cultivator, he would not be able to leave such a mark. Moreover, he was a senior captain. Xiao Ruiyun did not forget that he wanted to suppress Lu Yi with his military rank yesterday, but was suppressed instead. Of course, it was just a loss of face. He did not hold a grudge. In fact, after the incident, he was a little grateful to Lu Yi. Because no matter what, the mission this time was more than completed. The rewards would definitely not be small. The others were also shocked and looked at Lu Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Since you are all out, let's return to Grand Sky City to report, King Jianghu said. Originally, they still needed to recuperate for a few days and wait for their injuries to recover. But recuperating here was fine, and returning to Grand Sky City was also fine. The sooner they reported back, the sooner they could receive the rewards. You are the captain, you have the final say. Xiao Ruiyun shrugged indifferently. The others did not have any objections. Then let's go. As King Jianghu spoke, he directly summoned the spirit boat. It seemed that he was not going to greet the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In fact, there was no need to greet them. The Immortal Dawn Mountain was a mess and they were already very busy. There was no one to take care of them. Among them, Lu Yi was in the best condition. The task of steering the spirit boat fell to him. Lu Yi had no objections. Soon, the spirit boat rose and broke through the sky. The old sword cultivator hiding in the dark saw this scene from afar. He sent a message to Qian Wudang to report the situation here and quickly left. On the way back, King Jianghu had the time to thank Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, this mission is all thanks to you. If you did not turn the tide, our mission would have definitely failed. At that time, not to mention the reward for completing the mission, even the injuries they suffered before would have been in vain. Since we are members of the team, we should do our best. I heard that someone tried to stop you before. King Jianghu glared at Xiao Ruiyun as he spoke. He did not know what happened when he was unconscious. He only heard about it from Mu Zheng. Chapter 906. After being glared at by King Jianghu, Xiao Ruiyun immediately stood up and bowed to Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, I was a snob. Please don't lower yourself to my level. He was a 5th-order true lake realm cultivator. His humble attitude showed his sincerity. Moreover, Lu Yi had no grudge with him. It was just a conflict of ideas. Naturally, he wouldn't hold it against him. Senior brother, you're too serious. I'm used to being alone. Plus, there were some things that were not easy to explain. Senior brother, you stopped me out of good intentions. Xiao Ruiyun grinned at Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, you know how to talk. As for what Lu Yi said about some things that were not easy to explain, he was probably referring to the treasure that could break Ninghu's divine sense. After all, they had never seen such a thing before. Even if Lu Yi said he had such a treasure, it might not be of much use. Considering the gap between their strength and Ninghu's, no one would count on a treasure that they had never heard of. What are you laughing at? King Jianghu scolded with a straight face. The law enforcement team will advance and retreat together when carrying out a mission. We live and die together. This is the rule set by the law division in the early years. What makes me angry is not that you stopped junior brother Lu, but that when junior brother Lu took action, you all did not follow him immediately. Sweeping his gaze across, everyone lowered their heads in shame. When Lu Yi rushed to the depths of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, they did not follow him immediately. Coincidentally, King Jianghu woke up at that time. After learning about the situation, he immediately rushed over with everyone. When the captain scolded his team, Lu Yi naturally did not interrupt. King Jianghu scolded them again and said, Junior brother Lu deserves the most credit for the completion of this mission. I will report this matter in detail when I return to Grand Sky City. I will also ask the division chief to ask Heaven's Secret to deduct half of your reward from this mission and give it to junior brother Lu. What? Lu Yi was stunned. After the lonely mountain city siege, Thought Moon Immortal seemed to have asked Heaven's Secret to give him a large amount of merit. Thinking back to his experience in the Soaring Dragon realm, Lu Yi had a deeper understanding of Heaven's Secret in the 9 states. Of course, even if it's all given to junior brother Lu, I have no objection, Xiao Ruiyun nodded seriously. Then your reward will be deducted, King Gongwu said. Please don't. Xiao Ruiyun immediately with a bitter face, I'm just saying it casually, please don't take it seriously. At the side, Mu Jing could not help but burst into laughter, only to let out another shriek of pain as her injuries were aggravated. The others couldn't help but laugh as well. The solemn atmosphere became lively. Lu, junior brother Lu, are you interested in junior brother Lu? Lu, junior Lu. Interested? Originally, King Gongwu only recruited Lu Ye's men under the orders of the minister. However, after this mission, King Gongwu realized that although Lu Ye's cultivation was low, he was very capable. Not to mention the treasure that could break through the spirit sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator, even the weapon that could explode could be used by the team in the future. At the very least, when they were surrounded, the weapon would be very effective. And Lu Ye's ability to quickly arrange a spirit array. At that time, the crazy Ning who was trapped by Lu Ye's temporary trap formation, which gave them the chance to activate the 6 Origins spirit restricting lock. Yang Kai wasn't clear about Lu Ye's strength as he hadn't seen much of it during this mission, but he had seen the traces of Lu Ye's saber art. It was definitely not something an ordinary first-order true lake realm cultivator could achieve. Team 3 hadn't been replenished. One reason was the lack of manpower in the law division. Another reason was that King Gongwu had his own vision. He wouldn't accept just anyone. If he chose someone who couldn't work well with the rest of the team, he might as well not choose. But if it was Lu Yi, he would have no problem. Senior brother, I appreciate your kindness. To be honest, I just reached the true lake realm not long ago. I'm not familiar with the situation here. King Gongwu nodded. He understood Lu Ye's meaning and didn't force him. Take your time, don't be too anxious. Time flew by as they chatted along the way. They rested twice in the middle of the mission. The next day, the huge Grand Sky City finally came into view. King Gongwu had to go to the law division to personally report the details of the mission. The others had yet to recover from their injuries, so they dispersed to treat their wounds. Lu Yi also found an ownerless house and walked in. There was one thing that was on his mind. The old sword cultivator said that the deity vanquishing sword wasn't a one-time use treasure. Since it wasn't a one-time use treasure, it didn't make sense that it would lose its power after one use. What he needed to do now was to find a way to restore its power. The only thing Lu Yi could think of was to infuse his divine sense into it. He couldn't use his divine sense casually when there were people around him. Now that he was hiding in his house, he could do whatever he wanted. However, after a series of attempts, he was exhausted and his divine sense was almost exhausted. Yet he still couldn't restore the power of the deity vanquishing sword. On the other side, at the law division, King Gongwu reported all the details of the mission to Qian Wudong without missing anything. He also brought up his request to deduct half of everyone's reward and give it to Lu Yi. Qian Wudong listened quietly and nodded. I'm glad that you took the initiative to bring this up. I didn't misjudge you. All right, you haven't recovered yet. Go and rest. King Gongwu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he said, Master, junior brother Lu is a great talent. Yes, so what? If I can use such a great talent, I will be invincible in future missions. King Gongwu clenched his fist and waved his hand excitedly. He looked like he was going to conquer the world if he could get Lu Yi. Qian Wudong felt a little uneasy. Just tell me what you want to do. Master, please transfer someone from the front line. My team is still lacking a member. After 3 breaths, King Gongwu flew out of the hall with a weird cry. He almost crashed into a passerby. Landing on the ground, he scratched his head in confusion. If you don't agree, then don't agree. Why are you so angry? The master's divine sense transmitted into his ears, "You must keep this mission a secret. Other than your team, don't tell anyone else." "Yes, master." King Gongwu quickly cupped his fist and replied. In the hall, Qian Wudong snorted and sat down slowly. Transferring Lu Yi from the front line? What a joke! If Lu Yi belonged to another mountain pass, the Law Division Master would only need to say a word to transfer him. Those mountain pass masters would definitely give him face. However, Lu Yi was now in the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass and was the only soldier under that woman's command. If he wanted to transfer someone from that woman's command, he, Qian Wudong, would lose his skull. When Lu Yi came to Grand Sky City, he was only in the 9th Order Cloud River realm. If Qian Wudong was in the True Lake realm at that time, he could have recruited him into the Law Division. However, the difference of one realm made him miss such a great opportunity and allowed Nian Yuxian to take advantage of it. However, after this experience, Qian Wudong would be able to borrow soldiers from Nian Yuxian in the future. If he borrowed too many times, even if he wasn't on the same side, he would become one of them. Qian Wudong was calculating in his heart. Initially, he asked King Gongwu to recruit Lu Ye's men with the intention of letting Lu Yi gain some benefits. After all, the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass had been peaceful for a long time, and Lu Yi wouldn't be able to gain much merit there. Who would have thought that such a huge surprise would happen, and it really made him interested in Lu Yi. Transferring people was impossible for the time being, but Lu Yi could use some of his methods. Thinking of this, Qian Wudong shouted, "Men! Why couldn't it work?" In the secret room, Lu Yi looked at the deity vanquishing sword in his hand with a puzzled expression. According to his idea, if he wanted to replenish the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he should pour his divine sense into it. However, even if he exhausted his divine sense, he still couldn't restore the deity vanquishing sword to its original state. It didn't make sense that it wouldn't work. Did that old sword cultivator misunderstand something? If there was anyone who knew about eldest senior brother, it would be the sect master and Shui Yuan. Lu Yi quickly sent a message to Shui Yuan and asked about the deity vanquishing sword. According to the rules of the War Merit Pavilion, the origin of the treasures and the existence of the War Merit Pavilion could not be revealed. Lu Yi was only asking about the deity vanquishing sword, so he wouldn't break the rules. Shui Yuan replied quickly, "You have the deity vanquishing sword?" She was puzzled. The deity vanquishing sword and the soul-severing saber disappeared along with eldest senior brother. How did they suddenly appear in youngest junior brother's hands? Or did eldest senior brother hide the treasures somewhere in the sect, waiting for the fated one to come? And youngest junior brother is that fated one? Yes. As for the origin, second senior martial sister, please forgive me. I can't tell you. Shui Yuan naturally wouldn't blame him for this. She replied, "The deity vanquishing sword is not a one-time use treasure. Eldest senior brother used it many times to kill enemies. As for how to restore its power, I don't know." Lu Yi frowned. Even Shui Yuan couldn't figure it out. How could she ask the chief? "Little junior brother, did a spirit sea realm cultivator make things difficult for you?" Shui Yuan's next message followed. "Who is it?" Shui Yuan didn't think too much when Lu Yi asked about the deity vanquishing sword. But she soon realized that since Lu Yi used the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he must have met a spirit sea realm cultivator. This caused the flames of anger in her heart to surge. As she asked this question, she had already charged out from the front. Lu Yi quickly responded, "Of course not. I was just testing the power of the deity vanquishing sword." Youngest junior brother, did a spirit sea realm cultivator make things difficult for you? Shui Yuan's next message followed. Who is it? Shui Yuan didn't think too much when Lu Yi asked about the deity vanquishing sword. But she soon realized that since Lu Yi used the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he must have met a spirit sea realm cultivator. This caused the flames of anger in her heart to surge. As she asked this question, she had already charged out from the front. Lu Yi quickly responded, "Of course not. I was just testing the power of the deity vanquishing sword." He couldn't tell his second senior sister that he met a spirit sea realm cultivator when he was on a mission with the A3 team. Otherwise, she wouldn't let it go. Outside the center guard peak, Shui Yuan paused. Is that true? Of course. I'm in Haotian City now. How could a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator make things difficult for me? Shui Yuan's face softened a bit. That's good. I won't interfere in the fight between peers. But if anyone bullies the weak because of their seniority, you must tell me. Second senior sister was still so reliable. Lu Yi quickly said, got it? He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 907. What Lu Yi could confirm now was that the deity vanquishing sword was not a one-time use rare treasure. However, if this item was not replenished with divine thought, then there was only one possibility that Lu Yi could think of. After packing up, he left his residence with Hu Po. He asked a random person on the street and went straight to the nearest divine secret hall. There was more than one divine secret hall in the vast sky city. There were 7 or 8 of them scattered around the city to make it convenient for cultivators to enter and borrow the divine secret pillar. There were not many cultivators in vast sky city now. When Lu Yi arrived, there were only a few people in this divine secret hall. They surrounded the divine secret pillar in different directions. Lu Yi waited for a while before an empty seat appeared. He walked forward and pressed his hand on the divine secret pillar. His mind connected to the War Merit Pavilion. The next instant, the projection of his mind appeared in front of the quaint door. The 2 WMs immediately came to life. Seeing that Lu Yi had thrown fresh beast meat over, they were overjoyed. Lu Yi pushed the door open and entered, leaving them to feast on the meat. He walked straight to the stone platform where he exchanged for the deity vanquishing sword. Lu Yi looked up and saw that there was nothing on the platform. He could not help but frown. He had thought that there was more than one deity vanquishing sword. Just like the Myriad Devil Ridge battlefield imprint, it could be exchanged repeatedly. That was why eldest senior brother could use the deity vanquishing sword so many times back then. This gave others the illusion that this treasure was not a one-time use rare treasure. However, it seemed that things were different from what he had imagined. There was no second deity vanquishing sword on the stone platform. After pondering for a while, he thought of another possibility. Although it was unlikely, he had to try to be sure. He picked up the deity vanquishing sword that had lost its power and placed it on the stone platform in front of him. In the next instant, a piece of information exploded in his heart. Do you want to replenish the deity vanquishing sword's power? 30,000 battle merits. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. That was indeed the case. The deity vanquishing sword's power could indeed be replenished. However, it was not done by humans but by divine secret. He only needed to bring the used deity vanquishing sword back here and place it on the stone platform where he exchanged for it. Of course, he would have to pay 30,000 battle achievements in exchange for that. Lu Yi was so angry that he almost laughed. 30,000 points. Why didn't he just rob someone? He did have some battle merits left, enough to replenish the power of the deity vanquishing sword, but this number was a little too big. Back then, he had only spent 26,000 battle achievements to exchange for the deity vanquishing sword. At that time, he had thought that it was a bargain. After all, a single tracking disc was worth 30,000 battle merits. The deity vanquishing sword was a rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. Only now did he realize that this was a trap. The deity vanquishing sword itself was not that expensive. In fact, it gave Lu Yi the illusion that he had picked up a great bargain. However, the cost of using it was not small. The high and mighty heavenly secret gave Lu Yi the impression of a profiteer. However, on second thought, there was a reason why it was so expensive. Take this time as an example. If the deity vanquishing sword had not broken Ninghu's divine thought by surprise, the A3 team would not have been able to take him down. There might even have been a large number of casualties. The tracking disc was already worth 30,000 battle merits. A rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea Realm cultivators should not be cheaper than the tracking disc. Although the battle merits were good, they were nothing compared to a treasure that could save one's life at a critical moment. Lu Yi had spent 180,000 battle merits to exchange for the soul-suppressing pagoda. Was it not to save his own life in front of a spirit sea realm cultivator? This time, he had encountered Ninghu. Who knew what other spirit sea realm cultivators he would encounter next time? Hence, no matter what, the deity vanquishing sword's power had to be replenished. He gritted his teeth and chose to replenish it. In the next instant, the stone platform shone brightly. The deity vanquishing sword was engulfed by the light. After a dozen breaths, when the light faded, Lu Yi raised his hand and took out the deity vanquishing sword. He noticed that this rare treasure's transparent blade had an additional spiritual light. The deity vanquishing sword's power had been replenished. Lu Ye's heart was bleeding. He did not have the mood to stay here any longer. He put away the deity vanquishing sword and left the War Merit Pavilion under the earnest advice of the two flood dragons. After walking out of the divine secret hall, Lu Yi looked up at the sky. Just as he was about to return to the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, a ray of light suddenly landed in front of him. The person cupped his fist and said, "Are you Lu Ye, fellow cultivator Lu?" "That's right." Lu Yi nodded. "You are. I am the law commander. The head of the law department has ordered fellow cultivator Lu to meet him immediately." "Lord Chen Wudong?" Lu Yi was surprised. He did not know why this person was looking for him. The person nodded. "Fellow cultivator Lu, if there's nothing else, please go now. Lead the way." Although Lu Yi did not know why Chen Wudong was looking for him, it definitely had something to do with this mission. It seemed that he would not be able to return to the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass today. Lu Yi followed the messenger all the way to the law department. This was a complex of buildings. Many halls were connected to each other. Cultivators hurried in and out from time to time. Many of them seemed to be injured. This made Lu Yi realize how difficult it was for the law department to enforce the law. The messenger led Lu Yi to a hall on the side. Without announcing his arrival, he gestured with his hand. "This way, the head of the law department is waiting for you." Lu Yi nodded in greeting and stepped in. He immediately saw a familiar figure. Every time he saw the head of the law department, Lu Yi would recall the taste of the defiant dragon thorn. His back would ache a little. He walked up and bowed. "Lu Yi of the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass greets Lord Chen Wudong. Please take a seat." Chen Wudong, who was reading documents behind the desk, waved his hand without looking up. Lu Yi walked to the side and sat down. In a flash, a beautiful woman with bright eyes and white teeth served tea. Lu Yi thanked her and took it. The woman looked at him with a smile. Her beautiful eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. After serving tea, the woman did not leave. Instead, she walked behind Chen Wudong and massaged his shoulders. Then she bent down and whispered something in Chen Wudong's ear. Lu Yi was speechless. He did not know who this woman was to Chen Wudong. It seemed that they were close. However, this was the office of the law department. As the head of the law department, it was inappropriate for him to be so intimate with a woman in public. But it was none of his business. He looked outside and waited quietly. "I have something else to do. You can leave now," Chen Wudong said. The woman stomped her feet and snorted. Then she left unhappily. "Lu Yi!" Chen Wudong called again. "Yes, Lord Chen." Lu Yi quickly got up and walked to Chen Wudong. There was a mistake in the information compiled by the intelligence agency for this mission, which caused you to encounter danger. Fortunately, the final result was not bad. I only ordered everyone who experienced this to keep their mouths shut. No one else will know about this mission. You can rest assured. Lu Yi was confused. He did not know what he should rest assured about. Also, I'm interested in something else. Lord Chen, are you referring to, he thought to himself, is this guy interested in the deity vanquishing sword? However, the deity vanquishing sword had to be replenished at the War Merit Pavilion. Other than himself, it was useless for anyone else. Now that the deity vanquishing sword was fully replenished, it could only be used once. After that, it would be made of a special material. Explosive fire spirit rock. Chen Wudong had no idea what Lu Yi was thinking. He did not beat around the bush. I heard that you used an explosive fire spirit rock for this mission. The explosive power is quite impressive. Lu Yi nodded. Yes, there is such a thing. Can I see it? Qian Wudong reached out his hand with a smile. You've already stretched out your hand, how could I not show it to you? As long as he spat out a single word of no, this hand would probably turn into a slap. Moreover, there was nothing shameful about it. Lu Yi took out a fire spirit rock and marked it with explosive spiritual runes. Then he handed it over. Qian Wudong took it and studied it carefully. Then he began to exert force. Sir, please be careful. This thing. Lu Yi wanted to remind Qian Wudong not to use too much force in case the explosive spiritual runes were triggered. However, before he could finish, the fire spirit rock in Qian Wudong's hand exploded. However, there was no explosion. The dazzling fire was condensed between Qian Wudong's fingers. Because it was too compressed, the fire looked like a small sun. After the shockwave dissipated, Qian Wudong looked up and smiled at Lu Yi. What's wrong with this thing? Nothing. What else could Lu Yi say? Qian Wudong was a divine ocean realm cultivator. An explosive fire spirit rock could not hurt him. Even the shockwave was controlled by his fingers. Did you make this yourself? Qian Wudong asked. Lu Yi's movements were so fast that even Qian Wudong didn't notice anything amiss. Good. Qian Wudong praised. To tell you the truth, many years ago, a spiritual tattooist discovered the magical effect of combining the fire spirit rock and the explosive spiritual runes. This thing also appeared in the front line of the war between the two sides. Used. Lu Yi caught the key word. He was not surprised that this method had been discovered long ago. It was not a whimsical idea, but a simple combination of spiritual stones and spiritual tattoos. Since ancient times, there had been so many spiritual tattooists, so it was natural that someone had discovered it earlier than him. Yes, but too many people died. Later on, no one made it. Too many spiritual tattooists died. Lu Yi grasped the key point immediately. Qian Wudong nodded. The fire spirit rock is not stable. There is a risk of failure when constructing the spiritual runes. No matter how skilled a spiritual tattooist is, he or she cannot guarantee that he or she will succeed. According to the information I got, you are a spiritual tattooist. So you should know what will happen if someone fails to construct the explosive spiritual runes in the fire spirit rock. Once the spiritual runes fail, the spiritual energy in the fire spirit rock will go berserk. Then it will cause an explosion. Brother Shen. Yes. Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met people he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their faces. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was used to it. Because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin dynasty. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, he or she would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shen Zhangqing was not used to it. But as time passed, he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was very big. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful masters or people who had the potential to become masters. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. There were two professions in the Demon Suppression Department. One was the Guardian, the other was the Demon Slayer. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Slayer. Then, they would be promoted step by step until they finally had a chance to become a Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a trainee Demon Slayer in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level Demon Slayer. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It didn't take long for Shen Zhangqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the door of the pavilion was open. Occasionally, people would enter and leave. Shen Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A burst of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood assaulted his senses, causing his brows to instinctively furrow, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the demon suppression department was almost impossible to wash away. Chapter 908. With the combination of the fire spiritual rock and the exploding spiritual tattoo, the power of the explosion was not weak. Even a spirit sea realm cultivator could withstand it once, but he would not be able to withstand it if it happened too many times. As for a true lake realm spiritual tattooist, needless to say, one explosion was enough to injure him. After 3 to 5 explosions, even if he did not die, he would be bedridden. That's why I'm curious. How did you make so many exploding fire spiritual rocks? Qian Wudong looked at Lu Yi. My success rate in constructing spirit tattoos is higher? Lu Yi couldn't tell Qian Wudong that it was impossible for him to fail. Even if he said so, Qian Wudong wouldn't believe him. A spiritual tattooist building spiritual tattoos was the same as an alchemist making elixirs. No matter how skilled a spiritual tattooist was, there was still a possibility of failure. Qian Wudong couldn't help laughing. A spirit sea realm spiritual tattooist has an 80% success rate of constructing explosive tattoos in a fire spiritual stone. How high can you be? However, once the construction fails, it will inevitably lead to terrible consequences. I want to know how you were able to protect yourself from the explosion of the spirit stone and escape unscathed. This was the reason why he had called Lu Yi over this time. If this problem could be solved, Haotian Alliance would have one more way to deal with their enemies. This was of great strategic value. Lu Yi was in a dilemma. Qian Wudong thought he had a way to avoid the explosion of the fire spiritual rock, but that was not the case at all. How could he explain this? After thinking for a while, Lu Yi could only say, I have my own unique way. You can't tell me? Qian Wudong looked at him with a faint smile. Don't worry. I won't ask you for nothing. If you can share your way and solve this problem for the prefecture guards, you will be rewarded handsomely, including but not limited to military exploits. Lu Yi felt a headache coming. He didn't know how to respond. Finally, he said helplessly, Sir, it's not that I want to hide it from you. It's just that no one else can use my way. Even if I share it, it's useless. Sir, you don't believe me. All right, I'll ask Tianji to bear witness. If my way can be used by others, please punish me. After a moment of silence, Lu Yi said again, Sir, you should believe me now. In the 9 regions, the heavenly secret oath could sometimes help cultivators resolve some doubts and unnecessary disputes. Under the witness of the heavenly secret, no one could lie. Qian Wudong didn't expect Lu Yi to be so straightforward. It seemed that Lu Yi didn't lie to him. Qian Wudong was the only one who could use his methods, so there was no point in sharing it with others. He sighed and couldn't help but reveal a disappointed expression. If that's the case, then it's fine. You may leave. Yes. Lu Yi heaved a sigh of relief and turned to leave. But when he reached the door, he suddenly turned back. Anything else? Qian Wudong looked at him in confusion. Lu Yi said, Sir, if you want explosive fire spirit rocks, I can help you refine them. Gan Wudong couldn't help but laugh. How much can you make by yourself? If he were to do it alone, the production would be limited, and it would lose its value. Sir, how much do you think we can refine every day to satisfy our needs? Lu Yi asked instead of answering. Qian Wudong looked at Lu Yi and realized that the latter was seriously discussing this issue with him. Qian Wudong said, Of course, the more the better. But if you were the only one making them, would you be able to produce 1,000 pieces a day? He thought Qian Wudong was going to ask for a lot. It was only 1,000 pieces. If he wanted to refine them, it would be a simple matter. 1,000 explosive fire spirit rocks would take less than an hour. Qian Wudong was a minister. How could his appetite be so small? But Lu Yi also knew that it was best to stop before going too far. Qian Wudong didn't think he could refine 1,000 pieces per day. Everyone's energy was limited, and there was a certain amount of risk involved. If he said too much, Qian Wudong might not believe him. Even if Qian Wudong did believe him, Qian Wudong would be suspicious. It should be possible. Qian Wudong was shocked. Really? If he could refine 1,000 pieces per day, then he could make 30,000 pieces per month. It was more than enough to equip a minister of law. It's related to the future of our province. I'm willing to try my best. Lu Yi answered firmly. Good, good, good. Qian Wudong nodded approvingly as if the Force province had a successor. But Lu Ye's next sentence exposed his real purpose. Sir, it takes a lot of time and effort for me to refine. Shouldn't the prefecture guards do something for me? Qian Wudong couldn't help but laugh when he heard Lu Ye's blunt words. Of course. Qian Wudong thought for a while and said, What do you think? The materials will be provided by the prefecture guards. Every time you refine a piece of explosive fire spirit rock, you'll be rewarded with 1 battle credit. Lu Yi turned around and left. 2 points. Qian Wudong was speechless. Lu Yi didn't give him any face at all. Lu Yi didn't stop walking. 1 explosive fire spirit rock was worth 2 battle credits. 1,000 pieces per day would be 2,000 battle credits. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small amount either. The main reason was that Lu Yi could refine it in an hour. In this way, he could earn 60,000 battle credits in 1 month. However, this was not what Lu Yi had expected. Most importantly, it was rare to come across such an opportunity. Naturally, he would try to get as many benefits as he could. Such opportunities were rare. Name your price. Qian Wudong was helpless. Seeing that Lu Yi was about to walk out of the Ear Palace, he hurriedly said. Lu Yi turned around and raised his hand. He opened his hand and flipped it over. You little bastard! How dare you ask for so much? Qian Wudong was furious. He was the head of the law department, in charge of the laws of the prefecture guards. His words were like a mountain. Since when did anyone dare to bargain with him? He glared at Lu Yi and softened his tone. Kid, you should know that you're a member of the prefecture guards. The things you refine can improve the strength of the prefecture guards. When the prefecture guards get stronger, you can benefit from it. Sir, I know that. But if you want the horse to run, you have to feed the horse. Although I'm the head of the law department, I have to put the law department and the prefecture guards first. I can't accept your price. Raise the price on the spot and return the money as the fall. That's how business works. You little bastard. Qian Wudong gritted his teeth. 3 points. 1 spiritual stone is 3 points. You can earn 3,000 points a day. That's 90,000 points a month. Lu Yi shook his head. Milord, let's not talk about the risks involved in refining this item for now. It will take a lot of time and delay my cultivation. I sacrificed my future for the sake of the prefectural guard. Milord, you can't let me suffer a loss. I want battle points to buy the golden spirit lot to make up for my lagging cultivation progress. How can a golden spirit lot that costs 90,000 battle points a month make up for it? Qian Wudong thought that it made sense. He sighed. 5 points. That's my limit. Any more and we won't talk. Let's make a Tianji contract. Lu Yi agreed without hesitation. 5 points for an explosive fire spiritual stone was the price he expected. You're so sure that you can complete the task? Qian Wudong looked at him suspiciously. You should know that once you make a Tianji contract, you'll be punished if you can't complete the task. That's my business. Sir, just wait and see. Since you're so confident, I'll do as you wish. Qian Wudong waved his hand and a blank Tianji contract fell down with a golden light. He quickly listed out the terms and conditions for Lu Yi to read. After both of them made sure there were no problems, they both left their marks. With that, the Tianji contract was made. Sir, there's one more thing I need to tell you, Lu Yi said. The Tianji contract has been made. You can't raise the price. Sir, you're underestimating me. What I want to tell you is that there's a loss when making this thing. I know that, but the loss rate can't be more than 30%. Lu Yi was overjoyed, but he pretended to be troubled. I'll try my best. Now, he didn't have to worry about the fire spiritual stones he needed for his talent tree. the loss rate couldn't be more than 30%. In other words, he could pocket 30% of the stones. This wasn't his original intention, but if he had a 100% success rate, he wouldn't be able to explain it to others. 70% would be the best. Sir, when can we start? Lu Yi couldn't wait. He didn't expect that this trip to Vast Sky City would not only provide him with a stable way to earn battle credits, but also fire spiritual stones. This was a great deal. If you think it's okay now, we can start now. I'll listen to you, sir. Come with me. Qian Wudong led Lu Yi out of the Ear Palace and flew up. He wrapped Lu Yi in his spiritual power and flew in a certain direction. Soon, they landed in a small courtyard. This is the property of the Law Division. Normally, it is used by the injured cultivators of the Law Division to recuperate. You will live here for the time being. I will have someone deliver the fire spirit stones. I will not ask about the process, only the result. In 7 days, someone will come to collect them. Lu Yi nodded. There was no problem with this arrangement. Qian Wudong soon left, leaving Lu Yi alone. He could finally come out and take a breather. The courtyard wasn't big. Lu Yi set up some arrays to guard it. As soon as he finished, there was a knock on the door. Lu Yi got up and opened the door. A cultivator he didn't know was standing outside. He handed over a storage bag. Lu Yi took it and checked it. There were 10,000 fire spiritual stones inside. He nodded. No problem. The cultivator didn't say anything. He cupped his fists and left. Qian Wudong had ordered his men to deliver 10,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to Lu Yi, and the delivery time was 7 days later. Obviously, he had taken 30% of the cost into account. Therefore, after 7 days, Lu Yi only needed to give Qian Wudong 7,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to complete the mission. By then, Lu Yi would have 35,000 battle achievements. This didn't include the remaining 3,000 fire spiritual stones. Lu Yi walked into the room and set up another array. Time to work. Chapter 909. It wasn't difficult for Lu Yi to inscribe explosive spiritual tattoos on fire spirit stones. Therefore, he held a fire spirit stone in each hand. The one in his left hand was for inscribing explosive spiritual tattoos, while the one in his right hand was for his talent tree to devour. Not only that, there was also a spiritual energy vortex in front of him and many small funnels on his body. He was the only one in the world who could do 2 things at the same time while cultivating. As for what he said in front of Qian Wudong about sacrificing his own future for the prefecture guards, it was impossible. Cultivation was always the most important thing in a cultivator's cultivation. Lu Yi understood this a long time ago. He couldn't do anything that would delay his cultivation, no matter how great the benefits were. Time flew by. In just half a day, all 7,000 exploding fire spirit stones had been refined, and Lu Yi refined another 200 before stopping. The number couldn't be fixed, or else it would be too ugly. 10,000 raw materials to produce 7,200 explosive fire spirit stones. This result was very impressive. Qian Wudong gave him 7 days, and he couldn't leave the rest of the time, so he could only continue cultivating. He didn't imprint the origin of the soaring dragon realm, but took out the core of the breath fruit and prepared to enter the mirage to train. Since he reached the true lake stage, he hadn't entered the mirage, so there weren't many places to test his strength. Moreover, he had obtained many new spiritual tattoos, so Lu Yi wanted to train in the mirage and familiarize himself with the effects of these spiritual tattoos. Lu Yi was especially looking forward to the spiritual tattoo of Split Shadow. Among the 7 new spiritual tattoos he obtained last time, this was the only one that could be used in a one-on-one battle. He channeled his spiritual energy into the core of the breath fruit. His vision blurred, and he appeared in the familiar small space. There was a door on each side, one of which led to the training ground, and the other to the Immortal Essence City. Opening the gate to enter the Immortal Origin City required 10,000 merit points. Lu Yi naturally wouldn't open it easily. Moreover, the last time he returned from the Immortal Origin City, the city lord had said that he was already a member of the Jufu team. If there was a battle, the city lord would use some special means to remind him. When the time came, he would directly enter the Immortal Origin City to participate in the battle. Until now, Lu Yi hadn't received any notifications from the Immortal Essence City, so it should be quite peaceful there. Calculating the time, it had only been a few months since the last battle. Lu Yi turned his gaze to the other door, and he raised his hand to push it. The door light flowed, and a line of words immediately. Lu Yi's, its price again. When he had obtained the breath fruit core when he had been at the spirit stream tier, it had cost him 50 merit points each time he used it. Now that he had reached the Cloud River tier, he needed to spend 100 merit points. Now that he was in the true lake stage, the contribution points required to enter the Mirage had indeed increased. This was the same as the price increase in the Cloud River tier. It was doubled from its original base price. 200 merit points. The current Lu Yi naturally wouldn't care about a mere 200 contribution points. Without any hesitation, he pushed open the door and stepped into the rolling fog. The process of tempering was dull and tedious. It was nothing more than an endless stream of enemies charging out of the mist, only to be killed by Lu Yi. To Lu Yi's surprise, the opponents he encountered this time were no longer limited to human cultivators and insectoids. Two peculiar races, the Blood Race and the Corpse Race, had appeared among their opponents. The Blood Clan was the enemy he encountered in the Soaring Dragon Realm, and the Corpse Clan was the enemy of the Wushuang continent. There was no reason for them not to appear before, but now they suddenly appeared. Lu Yi guessed that the enemies that appeared in the core of the breath fruit were most likely related to the previous experiences of the cultivators who entered this place. Because he had encountered the Blood Race and the Corpse Race, enemies of these two races would also appear here. If he encountered any other messy races in the future, the mirage in the core of the breath fruit should also be able to reflect it. His cultivation had increased to the true lake realm. In addition, Lu Yi had made great progress in his saber techniques, mastered new spirit patterns, and comprehended the second style of the tyrant saber technique. This tempering could be said to be a fruitful experience. Only the moment when he was exhausted and killed, the pain was unbearable. That was the real feeling of death. Lu Yi engraved this feeling in his heart. Only in this way could he maintain sufficient vigilance in the real world. In the mirage, no matter how many times he died, only his mind would be damaged. In reality, he only had one life. Time flew by, and 7 days had passed. The cultivator who sent the Fire Spirit Stone arrived as scheduled and took away the exploding Fire Spirit Stone that Lu Yi gave him. After a while, Lu Yi felt some movement in the battlefield imprint. He lowered his head to check. His name, identity, and cultivation had not changed. Needless to say, the location change was nothing more than the change from the Blue Flame Mountain Pass to the vast sky city of the military province. In the contribution column, more than 100,000 contribution points were reduced, leaving more than 350,000. After all, cultivating like this every day and entering the mirage to temper himself again and again consumed a lot. The most important thing was that in the contribution column, 27, his strength was a little higher. Originally, after replenishing the power of the God-vanquishing sword, he only had a little more than 100,000 contribution points left. But just a few days ago, he gained another 130,000 contribution points. Needless to say, it was the reward from this time's mission with the A3 team. It was impossible for a normal mission to have such a big harvest, but this time, there were many problems and troubles. In the end, a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator was captured and killed by the A3 squad. Naturally, the reward would be greatly increased. Moreover, on the way back, King Jianghu said that he would report to the division leader and ask the division leader to ask the division leader to ask the division leader to reduce everyone's contribution points by half and give it to Lu Yi. With all these reasons combined, Lu Yi was able to get such a generous reward. According to the original mission, the A3 team went out to carry out a mission to capture a 9th-order True Lake Realm cultivator. The best reward would be 10 to 20,000 contribution points per person. But this time, even if their harvest was reduced by half and given to Lu Yi, the contribution points were still more than expected, at least 20 to 30,000. And the extra contribution points just now were naturally from refining the exploding fire spirit stone, a total of 36,000 points. With all these factors, Lu Ye's contribution points were more than 270,000. In the entire 9 states, there was no one else like Lu Yi who could continuously obtain such a large amount of contribution points. Otherwise, he would not have been promoted to the rank of commandant when he was still in the true lake realm. Just as Lu Yi was checking his battle merits, Wei Ling suddenly made a move. Lu Yi checked and found that it was Gan Wudong who gave him an order through Wei Ling, ordering him to go to the law department immediately. Wei Ling was like a mountain. Lu Yi could bargain with Gan Wudong on the exploding fire spirit stone issue, but he did not dare to be careless at this moment. He immediately rushed to the law department. Soon he saw Gan Wudong from last time. Compared to last time, Gan Wudong's attitude was undoubtedly much warmer this time. When he saw Lu Yi, he patted his shoulder affectionately and said, "Well done." Although they had signed the Tianji contract and had an agreement, when the results were right in front of him, Gan Wudong was certain that Lu Yi really had the ability to refine 1,000 exploding fire spirit stones a day. With these things, the law department's enforcement team would have one more way to deal with enemies when they were out on missions. It would also reduce the number of casualties imperceptibly. Previously, because of Lu Ye's haggling with him, that little bit of unhappiness had long since disappeared. "As long as you're satisfied, sir," Lu Yi replied. "I'll give you a day off. You can continue refining tomorrow, but I have to tell you that you can't fall behind in your cultivation. You have to know that the higher your cultivation, the higher the efficiency of your refining." Lu Yi thought to himself that refining this thing did not seem to have much to do with his cultivation, but there was no need to say such things out loud. Soon he realized something was wrong. "Sir, I have to stay in Haotian City to refine exploding fire spirit stones in the future? What's wrong?" Gan Wudong looked at him in confusion. Lu Yi said, "Sir, did you forget that I'm from Tsangyan Mountain Pass? I only asked for a day off to get promoted, but I've been delayed for almost 10 days already. Although the leader of the risk team did not ask me to return, I can't just stay here forever. Wouldn't that be desertion?" He still carried the identity of Tsangyan Mountain Pass Guard and Patrol Guard of Great Moon Pass. Of course, with his promotion he had now become the Guan Commandant and the Patrol Commandant. If he stayed here for a long time, the monthly salary he could get with these two identities would definitely be gone. This was unacceptable to Lu Yi. Just these two identities alone gave him a monthly salary of 60,000 battle merits. Gan Wudong looked at him in shock, speechless for a moment. He was so happy that he completely forgot about this. Suddenly, he felt like his heart was being stabbed by a knife. Such a talent is not from my law division. Damn it, why was this brat only a Cloud River Realm 9th Order when he came to Haotian City and not a true Lake Realm cultivator? If Lu Yi was a true Lake Realm cultivator at that time, Gan Wudong would have recruited him into the law division. Lu Yi did not notice the change in Gan Wudong's expression and said, "Sir, how about this? You give me the fire spirit stones and I'll take them back to Tsangyan Mountain Pass to refine. Every once in a while, you can send someone to pick them up. Although it's a bit troublesome, it's the only way I can think of." Gan Wudong raised his hand and stopped him. "Wait a moment." Saying so, he raised his hand and tapped his battlefield mark to send a message, but no one knew who he was sending it to. Lu Yi stood quietly to the side. Gan Wudong walked back and forth with his hands behind his back, looking a little anxious. He sent a few more messages, but they all seemed to have sunk into the sea. Helpless, Gan Wudong could only look at Lu Yi. "Use the guard token to contact your mountain pass master. Tell her I have something to discuss with her." Last time, when King Gongwu asked him to transfer Lu Yi back from the front line to join Team A3, he was afraid that Thought Moon Immortal would crack his skull open, so he did not dare to agree. But after discovering that Lu Yi had the ability to refine fire spirit stones in large quantities, his desire for talent finally overcame his fear. He wanted to take a risk, but he did not expect that Thought Moon Immortal would ignore him, which was very awkward. "Brother Shen." Shen Zhangqing walked on the road, and when he met someone he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their face, as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhongqing was already used to it, because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters, but of course, they also had some other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shen Zhongqing was not used to it, but as time passed, he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was very big. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts, or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhongqing belonged to the latter. Among them, the Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian, the other was the Demon Exorcist. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Exorcist. Then, step by step, they would be promoted to the position of Guardian. Shen Zhongqing's previous life was a trainee Demon Exorcist in the Demon Suppression Department, which was also the lowest level of Demon Exorcist. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It didn't take long for Shen Zhongqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the door of the pavilion was open, and people occasionally came in and out. Shen Zhongqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A burst of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood assaulted his senses, causing his brows to instinctively furrow, but quickly relax. The smell of blood on everyone in the Demon Suppression Department was almost impossible to wash clean. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.